Hey guys, here we are a 10th part of the story. Where starts right after the Sasuke retrieval, Jiraiya takes Naruto on a 3-year training trip. Taking his training seriously, Naruto strives to become the best he can and learn everything that Konoha denied him. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe button. Now, let's jump right in. Yugao cursed as she and the last member of her unit continued to run, jumping through the trees at an accelerated pace. The mission she was on had gone wrong. They had been supposed to meet one of Jiraiya's contacts who apparently had information on Orochimaru when they had been ambushed. Several dozen Auto Ninja had been waiting for her and her squad. Whether they had been betrayed or their contact was killed no longer mattered. They had been forced to fight their way out. Now only she and one other member remained. A whistling noise caught Yugao's attention and she cursed as several kunai were launched in front of her and her teammate. A sizzling noise let her know they had exploding tags attached to them. Yugao pushed her teammate out of the way. Jumping out of the way as well as the tags exploded. Landing next to the only surviving member of her team, a man in a boar mask, Yugao began to give out orders. "I'll hold them off. Keep moving to Konoha." "But Nico." "No." Yugao interrupted, already knowing what he was going to say. "Both of us won't be able to get away. I'm a better fighter than you, so I'll hold them off. Go warn the Hokage." The man in the boar mask knew better than to argue and jumped back into the trees, taking off as Yugao unsheathed her sword. The woman soon found herself surrounded, however that did not seem to bother her as she charged the first ninja she saw. Ducking under a kunai swipe, Yugao came up and slashed at the man's throat, chopping his head off. Jumping back as several kunai flew to her previous position, she rolled along the ground, coming up and impaling another ninja through the chest. She spun on the balls of her feet, using the now dead Auto Ninja as a shield for the kunai that came at her. When hail died down, Yugao shoved the dead ninja off her sword and into one of his comrades, jumping up and lunging with her sword, impaling the ninja through the skull. "Kaden, Gokyaku no Jutsu." Yugao cursed as she jumped out of the way of a large fireball. Twisting her body, she launched several shuriken with her free hand, impaling one of the ninja between the eyes. Landing on the ground, she came face to face with another ninja. This one managed to smash a fist in her masked face hard enough to fly into a tree and shatter the mask. Yugao grunted as her back smashed against the trunk. She did not get the chance to fall as one of the ninja came up and gripped her by the throat. He smashed her back into the tree trunk, making some blood dribble out of her mouth as he began to strangle her. Yugao grabbed onto the man's hand as she tried to pry it off, however he merely began to smash her into the tree trunk. As Yugao's vision began to fade, the last thing she saw was silver hair and glasses. Her eyes soon closed and she had one last thought before darkness claimed her. "Hayate. XXXXXXXXXXXXX." Fu smiled as she walked around the forest just inside Konoha, looking for different types of bugs that she could find. Despite not really liking her Jinchuriki status, she still found she liked to see different species of insects and had long assumed this affinity for them was somehow because of the Nanabi. She had been in Konoha for nearly a week and had been shocked at the difference in how she was treated. It seemed that Naruto was right. The people here, especially those of the younger generation, treated both her and Naruto with the utmost respect. None of it was out of fear either, but respect for their sacrifice. This was something she was not used to, having been subject to the constant hatred of her village except for when she was sent on suicide missions. Of course there were still people here who seemed to hate her, but they did not openly show it lest they get in trouble with everyone else. So far she had met a few of Naruto's friends as well and they seemed to not even care about what she held, talking to her as if she was any other person. However, while she was not yet used to such treatment, she could not deny that she enjoyed not having the stigma of Nanabi hanging over her shoulder. "Well, hello there," Fu said to herself as she found an odd insect that landed on her. It looked like a beetle with twin pincers, however she could sense it draining her of a little chakra. "You know it's not nice to drain people of their chakra without permission," she said to it. "My apologies." Fu jumped and felt her eyes widen as she turned around to find someone wearing sunglasses and covering his entire body in gray khaki-colored clothing. Fu watched as the bug flew off of her and moved over to him. "I did not mean for one of my bugs to suck your chakra, I was merely trying to find out who invaded the Aburame clan's forest. However, if it did suck your chakra without my permission you must have powerful reserves," Shino said. Fu felt her eyes widen again. "I'm sorry, I did not realize that this forest actually belonged to a clan." "It is most alright," Shino said, "I can tell you're a foreigner so that is understandable that you would not know this." "So that bug is yours?" Fu asked as she walked up to Shino. "Yes." "What kind of insect is it? I haven't seen an insect like him before," Fu asked with curiosity pervading her voice. It reminds me of the Papilia insects that I found in Kiba no Kuni one time, but I can tell it's very different. Shino blinked in surprise, having never found someone outside of his clan who was interested in insects. It did not last long as he began to tell her about his insect hive, with Fu listening with rapt attention. XXXXXXXXXXXX. Tsunade rummaged through the list of mission scrolls as she attempted to find a good mission for Naruto to do. Said ninja was calmly sitting in the seat across from her desk. Truth was, she had a lot of missions for him. After the Chunin exams, many of the customers had personally requested the clan head. She had also been forced to throw out a lot of marriage proposals for him that had been disguised as missions sent by various nobles to marry their daughters. She even found one for him to marry a woman who was in her mid-40s and already married. Picking up another scroll, she read it over before nodding to herself. This one should do. It's Tsunade-sama. The door slammed open and Shizune burst into the room, her eyes wide and her breathing heavy. "What's wrong with you, Shizune?" Tsunade asked with a raised eyebrow, a small feeling of dread welling up in her gut. One of our Anbu teams ambushed by Otto, Shizune said between breaths as she slowly regained her bearings. "We have an injured survivor. He's at the hospital right now." Tsunade along with Naruto felt their eyes widen. Mission forgotten. Tsunade rushed out of the room as she made her way to get to the hospital. Naruto watched her go with a frown, wondering what to do for a moment. Making a decision, he followed the blonde Hokage, catching up to Shizune, who was also on her way to the hospital. "Shizune-chan," Naruto said as he began to walk alongside the woman. "What happened? Whose team was ambushed?" Shizune looked at Naruto for a moment as she debated whether to tell him or not. Anbu teams normally answer only to the Hokage, and anything about their team and what they do are considered classified. Still, this young man was probably the third most important figure to Konoha, with only Tsunade and Jiraiya being ahead of him. "One of our teams was supposed to meet with a contact in Otto, however it seemed to be a trap. The man who came back claims to be the only one to escape." Shizune and Naruto stopped in front of the door that Tsunade entered just a moment before. "Whose team was ambushed?" asked Naruto again, an odd feeling of nausea welling up inside of him. Shizune looked at him and sighed. "It was Nico's team." Naruto's mind went blank at the announcement. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. The first thing Yugao realized as she woke up was that she was in pain, enough that she nearly screamed as soon as she woke up. The second thing she realized was that she was strapped to a table. Her arms were bound on either side, the bindings strapped tightly around her and done in a way that she felt like she was being stretched. Her legs were tied down in a spread eagle form, feeling much the same way as her arms. Looking at herself, she found that she was completely nude with absolutely nothing covering her form, making her instantly feel violated and exposed. Her head snapped over to the door on the other side of the room, watching as it opened and two figures stepped in. She found herself sucking in a breath as she stared at a pair of yellow snake-like eyes and pale skin, recognizing the first person as Orochimaru, Konoha's most infamous traitor next to Itachi. The other person was around mid-height, with silver hair and round glasses. He was wearing a purple outfit and had several medical pouches on his persons. While Yugao had never seen him, she had been given a general description of this man. This was Kabuto Yakushi, the man Hayate had been going to spy on before he was killed. Yugao snarled out as she began to struggle against her restraints. "Oh my," Orochimaru said in an amused voice, "Kukaku, it seems she knows you from somewhere, Kabuto-kun." Kabuto smirked as he pushed his glasses. "I don't think I've ever met her before in my life." "You're the reason Hayate is dead," Yugao yelled, her struggling increasing in fervor in her effort to get out of her restraints and kill this man. "Hayate?" Kabuto mumbled in thought before the proverbial light bulb went off in his head. "Ah. Now I remember him, the proctor for the preliminaries when we had our invasion." The medical ninja shrugged. "He was the one who was spying on me and our ally at the time. From what I hear, he was quite skilled with a sword. He even gave the ninja who killed him some trouble, though that did not save him in the end, did it?" "Shut up," Yugao yelled, her desire to snap this man's neck reaching an all-time high. "You're the entire reason he's dead. I'm gonna kill you." "She seems quite violent," Orochimaru commented with a snake-like smirk. "Do you think you'll be alright alone with her, Kabuto-kun?" "Of course, Orochimaru-sama," Kabuto said as he pushed his glasses up his nose. "Just leave everything to me." "Kukaku, very well," Orochimaru laughed as he began to leave. "I need to check on Sasuke-kun anyway, I believe he wanted some more training." As the door closed behind the snake Sennin, his right-hand man turned back towards the still struggling and snarling Yugao. Now there is no need for such violence, Kabuto commented as he walked up to the table and unrolled a scroll. Unsealing the contents revealed them to be what looked like medical scalpels and a jar of odd stones floating in a glowing green liquid. Kabuto grabbed one of the scalpels, smirking as he looked over at Yugao. You know, if you continue to struggle, this is going to hurt even more. Fuck you, Yugao hissed as she spit on his face. Kabuto just sighed as he took off his glasses and wiped them off on his shirt, before wiping the spit away. Now that wasn't very nice. I would have thought you Leaf Ninja would have more manners. Oh well, he shrugged before taking the scalpel and impaling Yugao through the stomach, dragging it along to open a large incision. Yugao's scream soon began to echo throughout the base. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto stood up as soon as Tsunade opened the door to the hospital, walking up to her with a determined expression. Tsunade-sama, I am going to form a rescue squad to see if there are any survivors that Orochimaru managed to capture and rescue them, Naruto said in a voice that told her he was going whether she allowed it or not. Your request is denied, Naruto, Tsunade said, making the younger blonde's eyes narrow. We don't have enough information to mount a rescue operation. Even if we did, we are dealing with Orochimaru here. Chances are Nico is already dead or worse. She knew why he really wanted to go. Tsunade had read the reports about how Nico or Yugao had been his bodyguard for a year before he entered the academy. She had spent time with the boy outside of her duties, even going so far as to let him know her identity as Nico, something that if the Sandaime had not been lenient about because of Naruto, could have cost the woman her career. I wasn't asking, Hokage-sama, Naruto replied through gritted teeth. I will be going, no matter what you say. Either you send me with a squad or I go on my own. All conversation that had been going on in the hall screeched to a halt as the confrontation between the two S-class ninja escalated. Shizune, who had only been listening with half an ear until now, turned wide eyes on Naruto, who, even though he never gave respectful suffixes unless in council meetings or when receiving missions of great importance, had never gone so far as to show insubordination. Especially to this level. Tsunade looked at Naruto with narrowed eyes, leaking a small amount of killing intent at the blonde. Tokubetsu Joni Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, I am giving you direct orders not to go after Orochimaru or attempt to rescue our lost squad. It's a lost cause and I won't have you doing something foolish. Well then, Hokage-sama, you can respectfully shove your goddamn orders up your ass. Naruto replied, I will be going, and if you or anyone else tries to stop me I will not hesitate to fight back. Tsunade's eyes widened as Naruto spun on his heels and began to leave the hospital. You would be willing to risk becoming a missing ninja for one person whom you haven't even really seen since you were 5? Tsunade asked, you barely even know her. And what about your dream to be Hokage? If you do this. Tsunade was interrupted mid-speech by Naruto as he turned around and looked at her with a hard stare. I know her well enough, Hokage-sama, and I am not about to let one of my precious people die, nor will I believe she is dead until I see her body for myself. Naruto turned his head. Besides, what kind of Hokage would I be if I let someone who I consider family die? With that, Naruto walked off, leaving a stunned Tsunade, who continued to look at the door he left from. Damn it! Tsunade cursed. Shizune, she yelled out, getting the woman who watched the confrontation out of her shocked state. Get me Kiba Inuzuka, Hinata Hyuga, Sakura Haruno. And Sai. Tell them to be in my office within 5 minutes. Why yes, Tsunade-sama, Shizune said as she ran out the door to find the people asked for. Tsunade sighed as she sushined to her office in the Hokage Tower. Naruto was going to be in so much trouble when he got back. She should detain him. However, he had said that if she tried he would fight her shinobi, and if there was one thing she knew, it was that when Naruto said he would do something, you damn well better believe he would go through with it. She sighed, hoping she was making the right decision. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto double-checked his equipment. Nodding in satisfaction, he rushed out of his room and out of his house as he made his way to the north gate. He ran over the information he had been able to get from Shizune. According to what the Anbu who had made it back before passing out, Yugao and her team had been ambushed 10 miles south of Oto. Shizune had said that Yugao and the one who came back managed to escape, but Yugao had decided to stay behind and buy her comrade time to escape. As Naruto reached the gate, he heard a voice call out behind him. Naruto. Turning around, Naruto howled in his surprise at seeing Hinata, Kiba, Sakura and Sai running towards him. Are you guys here to stop me? Naruto asked with narrowed eyes as the three stopped in front of him. No. Hokage-sama has asked us to go with you, Sakura said as she put her hands on her knees in an effort to catch her breath. That's right, man. Kiba said as he got off his large ninja dog. "Akamaru, we're going to help you with your mission. We are supposed to make sure you don't get in over your head, dickless," said Sai as he gave his fake smile. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise as he looked at the three. He had assumed that Tsunade would try to stop him from going. "I wonder why she actually got me a team rather than try to detain me?" He shook his head. Right now anything that did not pertain to rescuing Yugao was irrelevant. "You have my thanks then. We're heading towards Oto where a team of Anbu was ambushed. Our mission is to see if there are any survivors and if so rescue them. We'll be traveling fast so make sure you can keep up." Naruto turned around. "Let's go." Naruto blurred out of existence as he shot off, putting on a burst of speed and forcing the others to take off in order to catch up. Naruto and his team traveled for several hours. The foliage around the area passed by as nothing but a blur as Hinata, Kiba, Sakura and Sai tried to keep up with Naruto. Right now the blonde's only thoughts were on completing the mission he had set for himself. At the moment nothing else mattered. As the sun began to set he looked back at the others, noticing that they seemed to be lagging more and more. For a moment Naruto cursed. He should have gone on his own, at least then he would be able to move much faster. Sighing he came to a stop. Oto was farther than Taki. They could not get there before dark and the others were exhausted. He realized they would need to stop for the night. "We'll set up camp here," Naruto said as the other came up. "Kiba, I can hear a stream from somewhere up north. I want you to go and see if you can't catch some fish. Hinata, I want you and Sakura to set up camp. Sai, I want you to scout the area. Meanwhile I'll set up traps around our perimeter." The three Chunin and Wanroot nodded and went off to their various tasks. Naruto created several cage bushins and sent them off with several trap seals and sensor seals so they would not be caught by surprise. That night Naruto cooked everyone some fish that Kiba caught. The entire affair was fairly quiet affair. Kiba, Hinata, Sakura and even Sai were not sure what to say to Naruto. Said blonde was extremely quiet as he ate, not even looking at anyone as he just stared into space. "Are you okay, Naruto-kun?" asked Hinata. Though her voice was still soft, she no longer stuttered since her talk with the blonde about her reason to grow stronger. Naruto looked up. "Oh yeah, I'm fine." "You know you're a terrible liar," Sakura said. "What's bothering you?" Naruto sighed. "I know the captain of the team who was ambushed. When I was younger she was one of few people who ever showed me kindness and treated me like a human. Despite how long ago it happened, I never forgot what she did for me and how much it meant. Now she's in trouble and I'm afraid we won't get there in time." Sakura, Kiba and Hinata were silent as he spoke. They had not truly realized how hard his life was until his announcement of his Jinchuriki status. They had seen how he was hated of course, but never knew why. Now they knew it was because his own father had sealed the Baijiu who had nearly destroyed Konoha. All three realized that they had only seen the surface of just how bad the blonde had it. They realized why Naruto was so adamant on saving this woman. Because she was one of the few people who had seen him for him. Sai remained silent as well, thinking about what the blonde said. Is this what it means to have a bond with someone? He looked at the blonde Tokubetsu Jonin in unhidden curiosity, to be willing to go so far for one person. Could this be what makes him the way he is? Naruto sighed as he stood up. "I'll take the first watch, Kiba you'll take second and Sai will take the third. We'll do watches in 3-hour intervals, understood?" "Yes," Kiba said while Sai merely nodded. Naruto stood up and looked at the darkened sky, hoping that Yugao was alright. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. The next day found the group once again trying to keep the grueling pace, Naruto said as he rushed through the area towards the last known destination of the Anbu team. "Akamaru and I smell burnt wood and flesh up ahead," Kiba said, Akamaru barking in agreement. Naruto nodded. "Lead the way." Kiba took the lead and the others followed him. They came upon a clearing that was obviously a battle site given the burnt ground around the area. Naruto immediately ordered the group to spread out and search for clues that could help them find Yugao. Judging from the number of footprints coming from the north, the squad was made of 6 Anbu. He moved over to where the feet seemed to stop. They were met by someone here. Looking over around the area he saw a few kunai on the burnt ground, signs of a katen jutsu being used. They scattered. 4 of them were picked off one by one. He looked at each area, where he could see what looked like ash over the burnt ground. Looking down he spotted footprints that were indented a little farther into the ground. 2 of them survived and jumped. He placed his own feet into one of the prints. Looking up he jumped over to the first tree in sight. Crouching down he saw a 2-foot print in the tree. He continued to follow it until he saw a branch that had been taken out by an exploding tag. They jumped to the ground. Naruto jumped down and looked around until he saw two sets of footprints that he identified as those belonging to the Anbu. This is where Yugao made her stand. He looked to see a print that was scuffled. She was knocked back into this tree, Naruto thought as she looked at the tree. It was splintered, showing where someone was slammed into it repeatedly. Yet there is no burn marks from a Kaden jutsu like the others, which means she was not killed. Naruto kneeled down onto the ground. Looking around, he saw a glint of white and red. He moved over and picked up what he recognized as the piece of an Anbu mask, an Eco mask. Naruto whirled around and looked at the rest of the ninja with him. Kiba, I need you and Akamaru to track the scent from this. Naruto held up the mask piece. Kiba took it and brought it up to his and Akamaru's nose, getting the scent that was on it. Both of them began to sniff around, trying to track the scent to see which way it went. Akamaru gave a loud bark which Kiba translated. Akamaru says he found the scent, it's weak, but we should be able to follow it. Kiba and Akamaru took off into the trees as they began to follow the scent. Naruto and the others raced off as well, following the canine shinobi and his companion. They made their way out of the trees and Naruto noticed that they had crossed the borders of Hai no Kuni. They were now entering the borders of Ta no Kuni where Otogakure was located. In front of him Kiba stopped and raised his hand, causing the others to stop as well. He and Akamaru sniffed the area for a few minutes and frowned. The scent stops here. Naruto closed his eyes and thought, the scent stops here? We already know they didn't use any kind of scent killer, or they would have used it at the site and not been so careless. That means that either they did not expect Konoha to send anyone, or they did and are leading us into a trap. I doubt Orochimaru would waste his time to set a trap when he does not know who if anyone would actually come, so it's probably the former. Now since the scent has stopped here, that means that the entrance to wherever Yugao has been taken is here. Several Kage Bushin phased into existence. They spread out and began to search. Naruto turned to look at the members of his team who seemed confused. If the scent ends here, that means that the entrance to wherever Yugao is here. I suggest you four spread out and start searching too. Following his own advice, Naruto began his own search. Looking around the area for any sign of an entrance, he was not sure what to look for but assumed there would either be a hidden entrance or some kind of panel to open an entrance. While searching, the memory of a Kage Bushin hit him. He stood up and ran over to where it had been and smiled. There was a door hidden under a layer of leaves and dirt. He knelt down and looked it over. There were several seals on it that would activate if someone tried to force it open, one designed to alert whoever was in the base and another one that would explode and take out whoever was standing within a 15-foot radius of the door. Naruto unsealed his sealing brush and began to lay seals over the ones that were in place, making sure his counteracting seals were perfect before channeling chakra into them. There was a slight hissing noise and Naruto watched as the seals began to dissolve, leaving the door completely clear as if the seals had never been. Naruto looked up to see where the other four members were. He looked at them and individually signaled for them to come over. Okay, you five, from this point on I want all of you to use the standard Anbu hand signs to communicate. There will be no talking unless absolutely needed. We are now officially in enemy territory. Due to my speed and reflexes, I'll be in front. Kiba, you and Akamaru will be after me. Sakura, since you're our main healer, I want you coming next. Sai will be after you to cover your back, and Hinata, you will be in the rear and use your Byakugan to scout the area. Naruto grabbed onto the handle and lifted the door, revealing a ladder that led into the auto base. Let's go. Going in first, Naruto got onto the ladder and made his way down. His enhanced vision was able to see the bottom about a dozen feet down. He got off the ladder and waited as the other four came down. Kiba set Akamaru off his shoulders as the rest looked around the dark hallway they were in. Naruto looked around himself at the darkened passage. Even with his enhanced eyesight, he could only see about 30 feet in front of him. Kneeling down, Naruto put one finger on the ground and sent trace amounts of chakra through it. Up ahead, the hallway branches into 3 separate hallways. 14 doors in each hall, 7 on each side. There are a total of 56 people on this level and there's a staircase leading to another. Naruto stood back up as the information about his surroundings came to him, formulating a plan of action that would allow him to access more ground without having to separate from his team. He looked over at them and got their attention. They all walked over to him as he began hand sealing. Follow. He turned back around and began to move, walking along the edge of the wall as he used his enhanced senses to aid him. The 5-man squad made their way along the hall, taking the left branch first. Each time they went up to a door, Naruto would place a single finger on it to try and glean what information he could. 4 people, mid-Chunin level. Naruto sighed, Yugao's not in there. This continued for nearly 30 minutes as they went from door to door. There was only one mishap where one of the auto ninja had stepped out of one of the rooms and Naruto had been forced to kill him and the other 3 in the room. They ended up finding nothing in the first corridor and Naruto decided to take the one on the right next, doing the same process as the previous rooms. Finding nothing, Naruto and the others made their way to the last corridor. Still they had nothing and Naruto led his team downstairs. The first thing Naruto was able to determine was that this place was used for prisoners, or experiments. The place reeked of death and decay, the walls and area were decidedly less maintained than the upstairs. Walking along, Naruto looked into the cells and saw people who looked to be half dead, some of them he noticed had died and had yet to be removed. The blonde's disgust for Orochimaru rose as he looked at the area. He shunted his emotions to the side, knowing they would not help here. Finally he came to the one at the end of the hall in what he had dubbed the prison area and found a door, 3 presences, 2 chunin, 1 jonin. Naruto channeled some chakra into his ears. Several he could not hear much except for the breathing of the occupants, but one of them sounded strained and erratic, as if they were injured. Closing his eyes for a moment, Naruto made his decision. He turned to his team and gave them instructions. Wait. Taking a deep breath, Naruto grabbed onto the handle and opened the door. He didn't even need a second to take stock of the situation. Strapped to a table was a completely naked Yugao. There were numerous cuts, bruises and what looked like stitches all over her body. Worse was Naruto could see some odd-looking protrusions sprouting out of her skin that looked like bubbles. However, the worst thing was the glazed-over look in her eyes. It was the kind of look when someone had gone into shock from being subjected to more pain than the body could handle. Naruto's eyes hardened as he took action. The 2 chunin didn't even stand a chance. Naruto appeared right in front of the first one. No Hiraishin and no Sunshin. Just a burst of pure speed. He unsealed a kunai and stabbed it right through the man's jaw, sending it through his head. At the same time, Naruto created a cage bushin, which appeared behind the other shinobi and snapped his neck. Naruto laid the 2 on the ground so he would not create any noise, then appeared right next to Yugao and proceeded to unstrap her from the bindings. As gently as he could, he lifted her out and sat down on the ground with her on his lap. He created a cage bushin and had it henge into a cloak that he wrapped around her frame. Sakura, he called, no longer feeling the need to be quiet in this emergency. Naruto looked at the woman and her now dead eyes. Yugao. He grit his teeth as he got no response. Yugao-chan. Her eyes flickered a little bit, but otherwise nothing happened. He resisted the urge to shout and instead began to caress her face. He noticed a small reaction as her face twitched, but otherwise nothing. The others came in and he heard 3 gasps. The next thing he knew, Sakura was right next to him and running a medical scan over the comatose woman. She has major damage to a lot of her vitals, Sakura said as she analyzed the woman before her, numerous fractures and internal bleeding. She also has several odd-looking bumps on her. Naruto began speaking as he moved over the cloak on her shoulder to reveal the bubbly-looking lumps. Can you figure out what they are? Sakura frowned as she went over her medical scan. They're not a part of her. The pink-haired girl frowned as she tried to determine what they were. They have a separate chakra system, Hinata said in an effort to be helpful as she used her Byakugan to look over Yugao. Sakura's eyes widened a tad. They're eggs. These things are carrying something, some kind of animal or insect, Naruto finished as he remembered a lesson on parasitic insects similar to those of the Aburame clan, except they were decidedly more deadly. We need to get her out of here. Naruto stood up as another cage bushin appeared beside him. He gave the purple-haired woman to the clone and began to move. The others had little choice but to follow as Naruto began to run, moving through the prison as fast as he could. The others followed him as he made his way out. As they entered the branching corridors, Naruto's danger sense hit a high alert. Get back! Naruto and the clone jumped away, pushing Kiba, Hinata and Sakura out of the way as a large destroyed the roof and allowed the sunlight to filter in. It's been a while. Dobe. The 4 members of the Rookie 11 looked up in shock to see Sasuke standing above them. He had changed his outfit and was now wearing a white long-sleeve shirt that opened at the torso, with a small Uchiha clan crest on the collar. He wore black pants with a blue-gray cloth hanging halfway from his stomach to his knees. He had a purple rope around his waist that was tied in a bow in the back. Naruto could tell he had also gotten stronger from the way he carried himself, but he could also see the boy had gotten even more arrogant. Sasuke, Naruto said in a low voice as his eyes hardened as he looked at the man he once considered a brother. He had thought about what would happen when the 2 of them met, what he would do when he saw Sasuke again. He had played out many different scenarios for how it could go down, what he would say, what he would do. For the longest time he had been looking forward to this confrontation. either to convince the man to come back or to kill him should he refuse. However, right now all of that was a moot point. He looked over at Yugao, who was being held by his clone. Turning back to Sasuke, he knew he had no time to deal with the prick. Kukaku, well, isn't this a lovely little reunion? Naruto turned his head ever so slightly and saw Orochimaru and Kabuto standing together. Both of them held a large smirk. I see you've grown, Naruto-kun, Orochimaru said in his snake-like voice, which was oozing with amusement. You know, word of your accomplishments have reached even me. They pushed young Sasuke-kun here to train even harder so that he can kill you. Naruto's mind was a whirlwind of activity as he began plotting out the best course of action. His top priority was the safety of Yugao. She was the entire reason he came here. But he knew that against one S-class criminal, one A bordering S-class criminal and another who was said to be on par with Kakashi, Naruto knew he would have a hard time. Sakura, Hinata, Kiba, Naruto said in a quiet voice as he got their attention, I want you three to go with Yugao and my clone and get to Konoha. I'll catch up with you, but if I don't get there before you get to Konoha, then I want you to go inform Tsunade about Yugao's affliction and see if she can help. Sai, I want you to take on Kabuto. He is the weakest of the three, but he is still supposed to be on par with Kakashi, so be careful. Naruto noticed that Sakura was about to protest and spoke before she could. Do not argue with me, Sakura, we do not have the time to debate this. Sakura looked like she was going to say something but in the end just sighed, fine, but be careful and I'll do what I can. Naruto cut her off, knowing what she wanted. I can't make any promises though. Sakura nodded, knowing that was all she could get from Naruto before she and the others took off. Kabuto, if you will, Orochimaru said. Of course, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto said as he pushed up his glasses. He took off to follow the Chunin. However, he was cut off by Sai. Said pale boy gave Kabuto his false smile. I apologize, but I have orders not to let you pass. Well, I suppose I'll just have to go through you then, Kabuto said. Sai gave a smile as he finished drawing on his scroll. Chahogiga. Several large ink lions shot out of the scroll and headed towards Kabuto, who was forced to dodge the ink beasts. Sai kept up the pressure as he moved, continued pushing Kabuto back, taking him away from the fleeing Chunin and Naruto's soon-to-be battle. According to Danzo-sama's report, he is a highly skilled medical ninja with regenerative skills and can use chakra scalpels to attack. That means I need to keep my distance, Sai concluded to himself as he created more ink beasts, these ones in the shape of bears. The bear beasts charged at Kabuto, who had just finished the lion ink beasts. Said medical ninja looked over to see the bears coming at him. Activating his scalpels again, he began to cut into them, making ink fly everywhere as they dispersed. A loud sizzling noise caught his attention and he turned to see that one of the bears near him had an exploding tag on it. Kabuto jumped back as the bear exploded, sending fire and ink everywhere. The fire hit the ground and ignited the ink, forcing Kabuto to jump back. He looked over at Sai and charged, getting in close as the pale-skinned boy tried to back away. Kabuto hit Sai right where his heart was, only for the root ninja to burst into ink. A roar made Kabuto dodge just in time as a lion came at him from the left. Kabuto hit it on the head with a chakra scalpel, destroying it. He looked around for Sai, frowning in thought when he did not see the boy. His ears perked up when he heard a whistling sound. Looking up, he saw several kunai coming down towards him. He took out a kunai and began to dodge and deflect the attacks. A few managed to cut him, but his healing ability kept that from being a problem. However, a sizzling sound made him look down. His eyes widened as he saw exploding tags on a majority of the kunai, which had been set on a delayed timer. The medical ninja was forced to make quick use of the Karwimi in order to escape destruction as a large explosion went off from the exploding tags. Kabuto cursed his disadvantage, knowing that this boy would be troublesome to deal with. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Dobe. Sasuke said with a smirk on his face as his Sharingan eyes spun. He had been waiting for the chance to battle the blonde again. This time so he could kill him. Naruto looked at the two shinobi before, switching his gaze from Sasuke to a smirking Orochimaru and then back to Sasuke. I am going to give you one more chance to come back to Konoha, Sasuke, Naruto said. Sasuke smirk widened. Is that so? What makes you think I would come back to that weak village and give up my power for those fools? Are you going to make me come back? Don't make me laugh. You're still a Dobe and you can never hope to match the power of an Uchiha. Naruto chuckled. You know, Itachi didn't seem to think that after I kicked his ass and forced him to retreat. Sasuke snarled. You fought Itachi? When? I'm not going to tell you that, Naruto answered. I told myself I would give you one more chance to come back to Konoha, and if you didn't I would kill you myself. Sasuke looked at him with wide eyes for a moment before laughing. "You think you can beat me?" "Not think, Sasuke, I know I can beat you." Naruto looked at him. "You probably don't remember, or maybe your brain's been so twisted by your delusions of grandeur that your memory of certain events in your mind are skewed. When we last fought I let you win." Sasuke snarled at this, but Naruto continued, "During our last charge I tilted my Rasengan so that rather take your head off, I merely scratched your Hito-8. Do you remember?" Sasuke put balled his hands into fists. He did remember that day. How could he forget? XXXXXXXXXXXXX flashback. Sasuke! Came the demonic roar from Naruto as he charged up a Rasengan that was pure red due to Kyuubi's chakra being added to the mix. Dobe! An equally demonic-looking Sasuke shouted as he used his level 2 cursed seal. His skin was an ash color, his eyes were yellow and there was a cross-like scar on the bridge of his nose. His wings, which looked like webbed hands, were splayed behind his back. He charged his Chidori, the jutsu turning pitch black as he used the power of his cursed seal. The two shot off the ground and clashed at each other, their jutsu clashing and creating a large ball which engulfed them. However, Naruto shocked Sasuke as the blonde brought his other hand up and shoved a Rasengan towards his face. At the last second Naruto moved his hand and hit his Hito-8 instead. Just to prove he could. Flashback end. XXXXXXXXXXXX. That had been the sole reason Sasuke had not killed Naruto that day, because Naruto could have killed him but didn't. He had let Naruto survive so that when they fought, he could kill him at his full power, that way no one could deny that he was the better of the two of them. "I see you do remember," Naruto said, "though as much as I would love to reminisce about me kicking your ass, I have a friend who needs me." Naruto shed his haori and threw it away, letting the weighted outfit hit the ground with a loud bang as it formed a small crater. The blonde shinobi began to channel chakra into the seals located throughout his body. Kai. Naruto let out a slow breath, feeling the gravity and resistance seals release. He looked over at the two shinobi as he got into his daijutsu stance. He knew that he would have to fight with his all the moment this battle started. Both would likely underestimate him, one because of his arrogance and the other because of his belief that his clan was better than everyone else. This would hopefully give Naruto enough of an advantage to either kill one of them, or force them to retreat. "Let's make this quick, shall we?" Naruto said as he pointed a finger at Sasuke. "Raiten, Byakurai." Both Sasuke and Orochimaru felt their eyes widen as a large bolt of lightning headed towards them, jumping out of the way they saw it continue on its course. Right before it turned around and headed for Orochimaru, who created a Tsuchibushin and Kawiramid with it. While that was going on, Naruto appeared right in front of Sasuke and smashed a foot in the black-haired ninja's torso, sending Sasuke flying to the ground below. Uchiha grit his teeth as he flipped around and landed on the ground. He looked up just in time to dodge a wind blade sent his way. Going through a few hand seals, Sasuke charged up his chakra and called out his jutsu. Chidori, Senbone. Sasuke threw several senbone made of lightning at Naruto, whose lungs swelled up before he let it out. Futon, Mugen Daitapa. A large gust of wind shot from Naruto's mouth. Due to lightning being naturally weak against wind, the senbone dissipated. However, the gust of wind continued on, hitting Sasuke and lifting him off his feet. Naruto was about to charge in to finish him off, or at the very least injure him, when he was forced to dodge a swipe from the Kusanagi no Tsurugi. Spinning a full 180 degrees, Naruto unsealed Susanoo and raised it in defense as Orochimaru's blade clashed against it. Rather than push against the Snake Sennin, Naruto dropped his sword, making Orochimaru fall off balance and came up in the hopes of slicing the man in half. He did, however. Orochimaru turned into an earth clone. Naruto jumped in the air just as the pale-skinned man shot out of the ground with the Kusanagi set to impale him. Cursing, Naruto was about to launch a lightning bolt at the man, when Sasuke appeared right in front of him and hit Naruto in the face. Naruto flew back several feet, flipping himself over so he landed on his feet. He raised his blade in time to block Orochimaru's attack, pushing the man back before striking him in the stomach with a foot. The Snake Sennin doubled over and Naruto cut him in half, cursing when the man turned to mud again. The Snake Sennin came out of the ground again. This time the Kusanagi went straight through Naruto's chest. However, rather than bleed, Naruto exploded right in Orochimaru's face. It had only been years of experience that allowed the man to Kawiramid himself with a mud clone. Naruto turned around when he heard the sound of birds chirping, seeing Sasuke with his curse seal spread across his body, coming at him with a lightning-covered hand, destroying the landscape. Naruto charged the Rasengan in his own hand. However, unlike the standard Rasengan, this one was pure white, having had Naruto's wind element added to it. Sasuke thrust out his hand as he came closer. In retaliation, Naruto did the same. The two jutsu clashed as they tried to overpower each other, for a while at least. Due to the fact that the Rasengan had been an A-rank jutsu on par with Chidori to begin with, now that it had an element and the most offensive-oriented one at that, the jutsu tore right through Sasuke's Chidori. Sasuke was blown away by the explosion of power from Naruto's jutsu, landing on the ground several feet away, clutching a slightly torn-up hand. Luckily for him, his Chidori, which had its potency added to it by the cursed seal, had been able to somewhat nullify the Fuuten Rasengan's effects, or he would have lost his entire arm. Naruto had no time to admire his handiwork as Orochimaru came at him. Naruto was forced to dodge several sword swings from the Kusanagi. Due to the UN telegraphed nature of the style, it was only Naruto's enhanced reflexes, which by now were almost on par with the Yondaime Raikages when using Raiten no Yoroi, that Naruto was able to dodge the Snake Sennin's attacks. Even still, he got several cuts along his arms. Naruto could feel the snake-based poison from the blades trying to enter his system. But a quick pulse of Kyuubi's chakra destroyed every trace of the poison. Knowing he would have to up the stakes even more, Naruto began channeling Kyuubi's chakra directly into his muscles. Because he was fighting a Sharingan user as well as Orochimaru, Naruto knew he would have to be careful. Even though Sasuke did not have the Mangekyo, even a normal Sharingan had the ability to negate and suppress Kyuubi's chakra. All it would take was for the Avenger to catch him off guard. Despite being hailed as a genius, Orochimaru seemed to be surprised that Naruto had not dropped from his strongest poison, as well as the fact that Naruto's speed, strength and reaction time seemingly doubled. Naruto used this surprise to his advantage, managed to cut the Snake Sennin's arm off. However, several snakes crawled up Orochimaru's arm, making it seem as if he had never lost it. Still, it was painful enough that it gave Naruto the opportunity to smash a foot in the Sennin's chest, sending the man rocketing back. Spinning around, Naruto charged Susanoo with wind chakra as it clashed against Sasuke's Chokudo, defeating the lightning charged in the Uchiha's blade and forcing Sasuke to jump back. However, Naruto let him have no quarter as he appeared in front of him. Sasuke was forced to dodge to the left as Naruto's sword came down. However, he could not dodge the kick to his face, as Sasuke was sent flying back. Naruto spun on his heels and blocked another strike from the Kusanagi. Letting the blade slide past him, Naruto ducked and managed to impale Orochimaru through the chest. Orochimaru, however, merely opened his mouth wide, and another Orochimaru crawled out. Meanwhile, the one that Naruto had impaled deflated as it became nothing more than skin. Naruto jumped away as the new Orochimaru tried to impale him. Channeling lightning chakra into his sword, the blonde shinobi sent an intense burst of lightning towards the Snake Sennin, who was forced to use a Kuriwimi to get out of the way. Resealing his sword, Naruto began a string of hand seals as he saw Sasuke charge back over to him. Ranten, Sen. Naruto whispered the jutsu before spreading his hands in front of him. A bright white beam shot out them, launching itself towards a shocked Sasuke. It was only thanks to the Sharingan that he had been able to Kuriwimi in time. Sasuke reappeared next to Orochimaru, both of them charging towards Naruto, having realized that they may actually need to work together to beat him. Orochimaru came in with a knife strike to the throat, while Sasuke attempted to kick out Naruto's legs. Making sure his timing was right, Naruto crouched on the ground and pushed himself into the air so that he was parallel with the ground. Orochimaru's attack flew over him and Sasuke's under. In return for their attack, Naruto managed to kick Orochimaru in the gut and Sasuke in the face. With his attacks enhanced by wind chakra, the two were sent 50 feet back before they managed to right themselves and skid along the ground. They did not get the chance to do much more than stand as they heard Naruto called out another jutsu. Hyoton, Ryurenda no Jutsu. Water coalesced in front of Naruto, taking the shape of several thousand tiny dragons that froze over the second they were formed. The dragons charged towards Orochimaru and Sasuke en masse, the two forced to dodge the literal storm of ice dragons. They soon realized, however, that just dodging would not help. Once the dragons passed them, they would swoop back around and try to impale the two from behind. What the hell is this? Sasuke mentally screamed to himself. How the hell does the Dobi no Hyoton Jutsu? Sasuke hated how this fight was turning out so far. This was not how it was supposed to happen. He was supposed to meet Naruto, show him just how much better he was than him, and then kill him and gain the Mangekyo Sharingan. Now he was being forced to dodge tiny little dragons, which if hit could very well kill him. On top of that, his Sharingan was near useless. Naruto had yet to use any hand seals except for the ones that Sasuke could not copy anyway. It was getting frustrating to see the dough be this powerful. He should not have this power. Getting frustrated, Sasuke began to go through several hand seals. Chidori, Nagashi. A wave of lightning shot out of Sasuke, hitting the dragons near him and destroying them. Likewise, Orochimaru had managed to destroy them with the Kusanagi. However, neither were able to do anything as Naruto appeared right next to them, smashing a fist in their gut and sending them flying. Naruto did not give them a chance to even get back on the ground as he pulled out two Hiraishin kunai. With a flick of his wrists he sent them flying. Not even half a second later Naruto was right above them, two Rasengans in hand, which were soon drilled into their guts. Orochimaru was fortunate enough to have his regeneration jutsu, which he used again to shed his skin. Sasuke however had no such abilities, and as such the spinning ball of destruction tore into his stomach. Sasuke let loose a loud and wretched sounding scream. He found himself smashing into the ground, increasing the amount of pain he was in and forcing him to cough up copious amounts of blood. He looked up, gritting his teeth when he saw Naruto standing over him, poised and ready to kill him. A part of him could not believe this. He saw Sasuke Uchiha, an elite ninja trained by Orochimaru of the Sannin himself, had been beaten by Naruto, the loser and class clown. Fortunately for him and his defeatist thoughts, Orochimaru had forced Naruto away at the last second by throwing the Kusanagi at the blonde. Naruto jumped back as he knocked the blade off course, giving Orochimaru enough time to get Sasuke. "You have been a great thorn in my side, boy," Orochimaru hissed, "but rest assured I will kill you after I take possession of Sasuke-kun's body." With that the snake Sennin disappeared into the ground, his chakra signature vanishing with it. Naruto sighed as he felt the adrenaline in his system from the fight leave him. This was one of the first times he had gone full out right at the start of the battle, physically anyways. Now that the fight was done, Naruto felt tired. Needing a boost, Naruto called upon Kyuubi's chakra, letting it enter his system and refill his nearly depleted reserves. Dickless. Naruto cursed as he turned to Sai. The pale-skinned teen was slightly worse for wear but otherwise unharmed. "Did you get Kabuto?" Naruto asked, hoping for some good news. Sai shook his head. "No, I was unable to do so since he made a retreat 15 minutes ago." Naruto grunted. "Let's go then. We need to catch up with Sakura and the others." With nothing left to say, Naruto shot off, using his remaining energy to catch up to his team. 15 minutes of high-speed tree hopping, Naruto was able to see his team and the clone he left still holding Yugao. He appeared right alongside of the group, with Sai appearing just a little bit after. "Report," Naruto said in a commanding tone as he began drawing on more of Kyuubi's chakra to sustain himself. "There hasn't been any trouble," Sakura said as she continued running. Having gotten somewhat used to the grueling pace, Naruto said she was able to speak normally. "We have not run into any auto shinobi. I don't think Orochimaru was expecting something like this." She looked at him for a second and bit her lip. "Did you?" "No," Naruto said, already knowing what she wanted to ask. "Sasuke managed to get away. But I managed to injure him pretty badly, so he won't be able to do anything for a while, several months at least." Naruto moved up along his clone, and took Yugao from it while still in motion. He looked down at her and noticed that she was beginning to sweat. "Have you noticed any change in condition with Yugao?" Sakura shook her head. "Not that I can see. The eggs have not hatched, so we're in the clear for now." Naruto nodded as he glanced back at Yugao. He was unsure whether or not it was because of the fact that he had not really been able to look at her due to what has happened, or because of the eggs, but she was looking a lot worse than before. Naruto resisted the urge to growl as he thought about the ones who did this to her. While he had been able to keep them occupied enough that they had been almost defenseless to his assault, he wished he had been able to kill them. Next time, Naruto promised to himself. The group continued traveling as the sun began to go down. However, none of the other ninja had Naruto's stamina, and because of his fight with Sasuke and Orochimaru, Naruto was near exhausted even with Kyuubi's chakra to sustain him. They unfortunately had to turn in for the night, setting up camp and taking shifts. This time Naruto had Hinata, Sakura and Sai take the 3 shifts. Naruto stayed with Yugao as he gently laid her down in his sleeping bag. Not caring that the surface of the tent was extremely rocky, Naruto set himself down right next to his bag on the floor, watching Yugao until he fell asleep. The next morning Naruto awoke to a tortured scream. Jumping onto his feet, he unsealed Susanoo out of instinct as he looked for the threat. It was only when the scream tore through the room again that he realized where it was coming from. Yugao. Turned, Naruto saw the young woman writhing in pain. The blonde's eyes widened for a second. As he tried to think of what to do, he quickly shook off any thoughts other than getting Yugao back to Konoha. He jumped out of the tent, thankfully to see that the others had been awakened by the scream. "Sakura," Naruto shouted, getting the pink-haired Chunin to come over. "Take her, do a medical scan, try and stop or at least delay whatever is causing her pain. Hinata, I need you to help her as well." Naruto handed Yugao off to Sakura as Hinata rushed over to help. Naruto bit his thumb and rubbed some blood over his hand as he began stringing along several hand seals. When finished, he smashed his hand on the ground and shouted out his jutsu. Kushios no Jutsu. A summoning seal array spread out from the point where Naruto's hand had impacted with the ground. There was a large puff of smoke that covered the entire area as he along with the others were shot up off the ground. "Jiraiya, you better hope you're not the one who summoned me, you damn pervert." Naruto hopped off Gamabunta's head and onto Nose. "Bunta, I have an injured Konoha Kunoichi and I need very fast transportation to Konoha now." As if to accentuate his words, Yugao let loose with another scream. Gamabunta, seeing the frantic look on his summoner's face, and actually liking this summoner, decided to do as asked. "You got it, Gaki." The giant toad began to hop off at a pace that he rarely ever used. Naruto rushed back over to Sakura and Hinata, who were busy running some kind of healing jutsu over the large bumps, which Naruto could see were deforming as if they were trying to break. "What's going on with her?" Naruto shouted as he tried to make himself heard over the rushing wind. Sakura looked up from her work for a second, before going back as she explained what was wrong. "Those eggs are hatching. Hinata and I are using our chakra to keep them encased in a bubble of sorts. Hopefully, that will keep them from hatching until we can get her to the hospital." Naruto nodded as he sat next to them, watching as one of his precious people screamed and writhed in pain, feeling completely helpless because there was nothing he could do to help. He tore his eyes away from the sight and saw that they were coming up on Konoha. Gamabunta jumped right over the village gates and made his way to the Hokage tower. As the giant toad stopped right outside, Naruto jumped in through the window, not even bothering to take note of Tsunade and Shizun's shock as he spoke. "I have Nico, she is badly injured and has some kind of eggs implanted in her. I need you two at the hospital, otherwise she might die." As Naruto was saying this, Sakura and Hinata came in with Yugao, who was still screaming, but had overused her vocal cords so much that all that came out was a rasping noise. Tsunade, seeing this, instantly went into medic mode. "Sakura, Hinata, get her to the hospital. Shizun, get a hospital room ready in by the time they get there. Let's move, people." The four medics hustled out of the room with their orders clear. Naruto took a moment to take several calming breaths before he too left. With a brisk walk he made it to the hospital. When he got there, he went up to the front desk and got the attention of the nurse there. "Excuse me, but I was wondering if you could direct me to the room Tsunade and the three medical ninja with her went?" he asked. "Of course, Namikaze-sama," the nurse said as she searched her paper. "They went to the emergency room for intensive injuries. That's just down this hall. Take a right, you'll reach the room when you reach the end of the hall." "Thanks," Naruto said as he took off, racing down the hallway as he attempted to get there as fast as possible. When he did, he saw the red light on, indicating that Tsunade and the others were in there and attempting to help Yugao. Not seeing anything else he could do, Naruto took a seat along the wall, waiting until Tsunade or one of the others came out to let him know if Yugao was alright. XXXXXXXXXXXX. "Sakura, I need you to hold her down," Tsunade ordered as she tried to get the now flailing woman from smashing her in the face. They had just gotten her to the hospital room when the eggs had hatched, causing the woman not only more pain, but also making her appendages spasm at ever-increasing intervals. She and Sakura each grabbed a limb, pushing it down with their strength before binding them so they could not move. Once the woman was bound, Hinata and Shizun, who had gotten medical scalpels, began to cut into the woman where the protrusions had last been located. What they had found was disgusting. The thing looked almost like a snake, which in all honesty was not surprising. However, what were the hundreds of tiny tendrils that they could see trying to snake their way along the woman's nervous system. This was without a doubt what was causing the spasms as well as the excruciating pain the woman was on, and Tsunade had counted a total of 5 of them. "Here's how we're going to do this. Sakura and Hinata, I want you two to constantly monitor the patient's vitals and if necessary add the fluids that she is most likely going to be losing. Shizun, I need you to apply a continuous stream of medical chakra into Yugao. It may not do much, but it should at least somewhat ease the pain." Tsunade created 4 heavily reinforced cage bushins, all of them already had mental orders and immediately began to work. Tsunade and each of her clones began working on extracting what was no doubt some kind of parasite. What kind exactly she did not know. Chances were high it was a new one that Orochimaru had made himself. The work was hard, Harder than anything she had to do thus far, even harder than fixing Rock Lee after he was injured by Gar in the prelims 4 years back. She had to remove each tendril from the woman's nervous system one by one. At the same time she had to use her healing chakra to as soon as the tendril left and continue to send it out. This meant that by the time she would be done, she would be sending medical chakra to 100 separate spots. Add on to the fact that she had reinforced each clone with 1/5 of her chakra, and it made this task ridiculously hard. As the work continued, Tsunade began to sweat from the exertion. For a female, she had abnormally high reserves and stamina, especially considering that even though she looked young, she was really in her 50s. Alongside her, Shizune was always starting to get low on energy. They had been working for about an hour now, so it was understandable. Despite this, she continued to work and do her best to save the woman Naruto had spent so much effort to rescue. Sakura and Hinata had a bit of an easier time with their tasks. They had managed to plug in 4 and heart rate monitor. Now all they were doing was replenishing whatever Yugao lost with blood pills and nutrient packs. Tsunade didn't even dare to wipe the sweat on her brow as she continued working, lest her concentration break. XXXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto kept his eyes closed as he sat in a meditative position as he tried to keep his nerves calm. It had been 4 hours since he had gotten to the hospital. Despite the fact that he was exhausted beyond all comprehension, he could not bring himself to leave, not until he knew that Yugao was alright. He held back on the desire to curse himself for what he saw as failing one of his precious people. To him it did not matter that he had not seen the purple-haired Anbu since he was 6, nor that the village had kept him so busy that before the training trip he had not even had the time to think about her. He had made a promise to himself a long time ago that he would protect his precious people, be it from physical harm or mental harm. Yugao was one of his precious people, and for the past 4.5 years she had been suffering. She had lost the person she had considered the most precious to her, someone she had planned on marrying, and he had done nothing to help. He had not even thought about the purple-haired woman who had protected him, cared for him, and in many ways showed him what it meant to be loved, even if it had only been in a big sister kind of way. In some ways he could not help but feel that this was his fault. If only he had sought her out after the Chunin exams, if only he had comforted her before he left for the village. So many things he could have done, should have done, but didn't. It was enough to make him feel like a helpless child again. He shook his head. Living in the past is useless. If I focus on what I should have done back then, I'll never be able to do things I can and should do now. He took a deep breath, sending his conscience deep into himself as he began an exercise he had created several years back. Reaching in, he began to look for his chakra. It wasn't hard to find. Unlike most people who had to force chakra out of their bodies, Naruto only had to reach it. He liked to think of his chakra as facet, a very large facet. Whereas most ninja actually had to pull and drag their chakra to use, all he would do was turn it on, much like turn the handle on a faucet to get water. It was for this reason that the Bushin Jutsu was forever out of his reach. Even if he only let his chakra flow for less than 1/4 of a second, it was already too much and the Bushin was overloaded. He shook his head again and forced himself to go deeper. As soon as he reached his chakra, he began to feel it out. If chakra were to be given a color, most people would often describe theirs as a light blue. Naruto's chakra was a dark and thick blue. Reaching even further, Naruto felt out the many different types of chakra he had or could produce. The first was easily recognizable as Kyubi's, a deep red color that seemed to burn and thrash in a chaotic manner as if it was alive. Ignoring it for the moment, Naruto began to focus on his other chakras, or his elemental chakra. There were 5 in total. The first was a deep green color and had field that was very contradictory in nature, giving off both a calming and chaotic feeling. This was his main affinity, wind chakra. His second was a bright yellow bordering white, and the feel it gave could best be described as shocking. It was his lightning affinity. His third was a deep blue and had a completely calming and cool aura to it, letting him know it was his affinity for water. However, there were 2 others as well. The first was white and ice cold. It was drawing from a combination of his wind and water affinities, showing that it was ice. The other one was oddly enough purple in color. It gave off a chaotic and electric feel, telling him it was storm. Continuing with his exercises, Naruto began to mix the different chakra types together, getting different combinations of density and power. The exercise itself was useless for combat purposes. Mixing more type of one element over the other always gave off explosive results. It was part of the reason bloodlines were so coveted, since they made people instinctively know what the right amount of elemental chakra needed to be added into the mix. However, while this did not help with combat situations, it did allow him better control over his chakra and elements. His concentration was snapped as the red light on top of the hospital door turned off. A second later the door opened and a tired Tsunade walked out. Naruto stood up and went up to her. He opened his mouth to speak but Tsunade raised a hand, stopping him. "Yugao is stable," Tsunade said. "We managed to fix her up and she will be just fine, however she will not be waking up anytime soon." Naruto sighed in relief. He looked up and Tsunade was surprised to see tears of relief on the younger blonde's face. Naruto wrapped his arms around a surprised Tsunade, who stiffened at the physical contact. "Thank you," Naruto whispered. Tsunade returned the hug as she heard the relief in Naruto's voice. It was only now that she truly realized just how important Yugao was to him. "You are welcome, brat," she said as she released the hug. When she did, the woman gave Naruto a glare. "However, you and I need to have a long talk." Naruto just nodded, knowing that his insubordination would not get let off. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. After that I summoned Gamabunta. I got Yugao and my team here as fast as I could. Naruto finished his explanation of his self-appointed rescue mission. Tsunade looked at him with an unreadable expression as she listened to the report. She was actually impressed that he had been able to fight two powerful shinobi at the same time. However, she was also angry at how reckless it was, given what Naruto was telling her. If Sasuke had been given enough time to utilize the full power of his cursed, Naruto could have lost. "What you did was extremely reckless, Naruto." To the blonde male's credit, he did not flinch at her tone or words. "Going up against two S-ranked nin." "A rank," Naruto corrected, causing Tsunade to raise an eyebrow. "Sasuke is only an A-rank ninja without the full power of his cursed seal. With it he may have been able to give me trouble, but without it he could not do much. That still does not make the fact that you engage two powerful shinobi at the same time without backup." Tsunade glared at him. Her glare, however, was merely to hide the fear she felt at the thought of Naruto getting injured. If something had happened to the young man on this mission, or any mission really, she would never be able to forgive herself. "I know," Naruto said in a quiet, "that is why I am willing to accept any punishment you offer." Tsunade sighed. She knew the man in front of her did not regret his decision even for a second. "Because of your insubordinate actions, I am putting you on a 1-month probation where you will not be able to leave the village. Also, you will be required to do 31D rank missions while on this probation period." She knew this punishment was somewhat harsh, but most cases of insubordination could be taken as a sign of treason, which was punishable by death. Naruto nodded, not in the least bit concerned by the punishment he was receiving. "I understand, Tsunade-sama." He paused for a moment. "Was that all? Or could I?" Tsunade sighed as she waved him off. "Go on and visit Yugao. She should be out of intensive by now." Naruto gave her a smile of thanks before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto entered the room where Yugao was staying, grabbing a chair on the wall and placing it near her bed. He sat down with a heavy sigh, running a hand through his hair as he thought about what his confrontation with Sasuke. Any feelings of comradeship he may have once felt for the Uchiha was long gone now. Whether he was a part of what happened to Yugao or not, Naruto knew that he would know of it. It did not even matter if he actively participated in her torture. The fact that he knew was enough for Naruto. During their next confrontation, Sasuke would die, painfully. Naruto promised himself that. He shook the thoughts off and focused his attention on the practically comatose form of Yugao. Reaching out, he took one of her hands in both of his, gently rubbing his fingers along her hand. "Damn it, Yugao," Naruto whispered to himself as he thought of the woman. He knew what she was trying to do, going on S-rank mission after S-rank mission in the hopes that she would die. Her friends had been telling him about how the woman seemed to lose her will to live after the Chunin exams. He quickly squashed the guilty feelings that emerged from this train of thought. He could not change the past and dwelling on it did nothing, something he had constantly been forced to remind himself recently. "Never again," Naruto said as he leaned his head down and kissed Yugao on the forehead, laying his head on her bed after that. He was not going to stand by and watch as one of the people he cared for, and admittedly had a crush on since childhood, suffer. "Never again will I let her feel this pain." With those last thoughts, Naruto slowly closed his eyes and let himself fall asleep as his nearly depleted energy left him. A little while later a nurse came by. Seeing the blonde with his head on the bed, she was about to wake him up. However, she noticed the way he was holding the woman's hand, nearly right next to his lips, as well as realizing who he was. Hokage-sama had given him special permission to stay the night, having anticipated that Naruto would not leave even if ordered. Turning off the lights, the nurse left the room, leaving the two people there to sleep. "Man, I can't believe she's giving you such a harsh punishment." Kiba complained in a loud voice as he, Naruto and the other members of the Konoha 11 sat at a large table in one of the Akimichi-owned restaurants. I mean, all you did was go to save one of her Anbu, you'd think she would be. Enough Kiba, Naruto said in a calm voice. He shook his head at his friend. It was obvious that Kiba along with a few of his other friends did not understand. She's only doing what she thinks is right. But Naruto forestalled his words with a smile. I was given direct orders not to go on my self-appointed rescue mission and disobeyed those orders. I knew that when I returned I would be punished for it. I accepted that, and in truth I don't really care about my punishment. So long as I can protect my precious people, then no punishment is too high a price. Kiba shut his mouth after that as he and the others listened to the blonde speak. The differences in the old Naruto and the one who came back once again became more clear and pronounced. Still, Ino said as she picked at her salad, it does seem a little harsh. I mean, an entire month of D-rank missions and probation from leaving Konoha for trying to save a friend. Ino shook her head. It doesn't seem fair. On the contrary, it's actually far fairer than what most people would get for such a blatant act of insubordination. The level of insubordination I showed is a major felony in Konoha, borderlining on treason, and can be punished with several years in jail as a minimum punishment and at worst death, Naruto said, getting gasps from the others who did not understand shinobi politics. What's more, my punishment will serve as an example that no one will get away scot-free for disobeying direct orders from the Hokage. As a clan head, I'm supposed to set an example for other ninja. That I did not mean she really had no other option. This will also let others feel a sense of unity, knowing that just because I come from a powerful clan, does not mean I will be able to get away with everything I want. Man, politics are so troublesome, Shikamaru said with a sigh. I really don't envy you, Naruto, having to deal with all this troublesome business. You know, if you become Hokage you're going to have to deal with these types of situations often. Naruto laughed. Yeah, well, just wait until you take over for your father as clan head. Who knows, you may end up being my second in command after I become Hokage. Everyone laughed as Shikamaru groaned at the thought. If he ended up as the second in command for all of the shinobi forces, he would have so much work that he would not have any time for his cloud watching, or shogi, or sleeping, or anything really. Now that would be troublesome. Sai, who had been invited by Naruto after he had found the pale-skinned boy reading at the library, just watched as the group interacted. They seemed so normal, nothing like he thought ninja should be, how he was taught ninja should be. They showed their emotions and acted like normal civilians when not on duty, something he had been taught a ninja should never do. Sai looked over at Naruto. He had observed the blonde on the battlefield on numerous occasions now. Never once had he ever seen Naruto lose his cool when fighting. Even during their recent rescue mission he had not lost control of his emotions in battle. A part of him wondered if he would be able to better understand emotions. Maybe he would be able to gain his own with time. Naruto looked over at the time and sighed. Standing up, he looked at his friends and gave them a grin. Well, it looks like it's time to do another D rank, so I'll see you guys later. Tossing a wave over his shoulder, Naruto left the restaurant. The blonde walked through the streets of Konoha, making his way to the Hokage Tower so he could get his D rank mission. He waved to a few of the people he passed, tossing a grin to a few of the children who would stop playing to watch him. Looking in front of him, Naruto saw the Hokage Tower in view. He walked in and made his way up the stairs, stopping in front of the front desk that Isaribi was manning. Writing to your boyfriend again? Naruto asked with a grin as Isaribi jumped. Kami, Naruto, don't do that, she said, holding a hand to her chest as she tried to get her heart rate under control. She blushed a bit when she registered what he said. During the Chunin exams when she had met Chujuro, the two had hit it off fairly well. They weren't doing anything yet, having only really hung out together a few times, but they still considered themselves good friends. Of course, as soon as Naruto had found out that the two were sending letters to each other, he had not stopped teasing her about it. No, she said, a light blush staining her cheeks, I was just looking through some files for Hokage-sama. Really? Then what do you call this? Naruto drawled as he held up a letter, one that Isaribi instantly recognized as the increasing blush on her face spread. Give that back, Isaribi shouted as she jumped over her desk and tried to grab it, only for Naruto to move his hands out of her reach. Isaribi jumped on him in an attempt to get it, but Naruto merely switched himself out with a cage bunshine. The girl jumped off his clone when she saw another Naruto holding her letter, puffing out her cheeks comically as she put her hands on her hips. Give me the letter, Naruto-kun, Isaribi said as she held her hand out. When he didn't, she gave him the Kunoe Inu Bushi no Jutsu that all females seem to know, no matter whether they were ninja or civilians. It was one of Naruto's few weaknesses. Naruto sighed as he handed her the letter. "You're no fun, Ribi-chan." He perked up a second later as a grin crossed his face. "So you admit that is a letter to your boyfriend?" Ribi's face got beet red. I never said Chojuro was my boyfriend. And I never said I was talking about Chojuro," Naruto shot back, much to the girl's embarrassment. Naruto laughed as he made his way into the Hokage's office, leaving a stuttering and red-faced Hisaribi. Walking in, the blonde saw Tsunade looking out of the window behind her desk. Naruto walked up to the front and stood there. He did not speak, knowing that she already knew he was here and would talk when she was ready. "Here for another D rank?" Tsunade asked as she turned around. She looked at Naruto, whose face was fairly impassive at the moment. The blonde Hokage had been surprised at just how little resistance Naruto put up when given this punishment, meaning he had not even bothered resisting at all. Tsunade was actually impressed. Naruto seemed to understand the political implications of what he did and how it would affect other ninja in Konoha, which was the reason he did not resist. Though she knew that he would do it again regardless of any reprimands he got, something that, if she were honest with herself, also impressed her. "Yes, Hokage-sama," Naruto said, using the respectful title and suffix. He had decided that since he was in trouble it would be best if he did not call her Ba-chan for the moment. Tsunade shuffled through the stack of D ranks that she had, selecting one that had her smirking. She gave it to him as she spoke. "Your mission is to retrieve Tora the cat, who seems to have escaped her owner again." Naruto howled in a sigh as he grabbed the scroll, nodding to Tsunade before he disappeared in a burst of lightning. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto entered Yugao's room in the hospital, not even blinking as he spotted Shizune checking over the woman's condition. He had been here enough times to know that either she, Sakura or Hinata would check in on the woman once every 2 hours depending on whose shift it was. Naruto had spent every evening with Yugao, even though he knew that the purple-haired woman would not wake up for several more days at the least. "How is she doing, Shizune-chan?" asked Naruto as he took a chair and brought it up to the edge of the bed. Sitting down, he reached out and took one of Yugao's hands in his own, gently caressing it like he had been doing every time he came in. Shizune looked at him for a second before going back to checking the monitors. "She seems to be doing fine. She's still in her miniature coma, but Tsunade-sama and I believe she will come out of it in a few days or so." The young woman finished her check and walked around the bed. Coming up to Naruto, she placed a hand on his shoulder. "You know you don't have to come here every day. She'll wake up eventually and I'll be sure to inform you as soon as it happens." Naruto shook his head. "Thanks, Ne-chan. But it's not about her waking up that makes me stay." Shizune raised an eyebrow at the odd comment but did not say anything, knowing that if Naruto wanted to tell her, he would. Said blonde continued to stare at Yugao's face, which looked so vulnerable right now, nothing at all like the face he remembered from his childhood. "I just can't seem to bear the thought of leaving her alone any more than I have to. When I left for my 4-year training trip, I never thought about how she was doing. Even before that and right after the invasion, I may not have known that Hayate had been killed. But I feel that I should have at least checked up on her to make sure she was alright. I've always proclaimed that protecting my precious people is the most important thing to me. Yet it wasn't until I came back that I even remembered to check on Yugao. I guess, maybe a part of me just thought she would be fine. She's an Anbu after all and they go through extensive emotional conditioning. And then I saw her and she looked dead, like a part of her had been killed." Shizune winced at the anguish in the young man's voice. She knew how much his friends meant to him. During his childhood he had no friends and the number of people he considered close could have been counted on one hand, so it was not surprising that those precious people he did gain, were held onto and cherished that much more. She gently squeezed his shoulder, hoping to in some way help with the pain and guilt he was dealing with. "You know none of this is your fault," Shizune told him in a low voice. "I know," Naruto replied in a soft voice. He took his gaze away from Yugao for a moment to give Shizune a smile. "I do realize that there was really nothing I could do." He looked back at Yugao and frowned. "That doesn't make watching the people I love suffer any easier to bear." Shizune just nodded in understanding, giving his shoulder one last squeeze before she left the room. Naruto watched her go before turning back to the purple-haired woman in the bed. "Get well soon, Yugao." XXXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto grunted as he pulled out another weed from the lawn he was working in. Looking up, he noticed that the sun was beginning to set. It had been about a week since he had been put on probation and been prohibited from leaving Konoha, something his fiancées had not been very pleased to hear about. It had taken quite a bit of explaining to get himself off the hook. Even then they had mixed feelings about what had happened. Thankfully they knew Naruto better than most and knew that he would never leave someone he cared about to suffer if he could help it, so they had reluctantly accepted it. It was also good that while he could not leave Konoha, that did not mean that they could not be teleported here. He had used the Hiraishin's reverse teleportation ability to great effect this past week, summoning Mei, Konan, Yugito and Koyuki during this time, spending several hours with each of them after he had finished his D-ranked missions for the day. Afterwards he would go to visit Yugao, who had still not come out of a coma, something Naruto had been told she got from the shock of having her nervous system invaded by a parasite. The blonde hoped she would come out of it soon. He was not sure how much longer he could take of seeing the woman whom to him had always been one of the people he thought of as being invincible in the state she was in. Bending down, Naruto grabbed another weed, pulling it out and throwing it in his bag. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Her body shook as she stared at the cut-up body of her lover, the wounds signifying that he had been killed by a wind blade. Tears poured down her cheeks as she tried to understand why this had happened. Why was it that the person who meant the world to her had died? She knew that as a ninja, death was an ever-present reality. Most ninja never even live past their mid-20s. It was the reason a lot of ninja started sexual relationships so early. The Ondaime was the greatest example of that, hailed as a genius among geniuses at age 10, single-handedly winning a war at age 21. Dying when he sealed the QB at age 28, it showed that even the best could fall. Yet somehow she never thought it would happen to her or Hayate. With all they had been through, she thought they would have been immune to such things. Hayate, she picked up his sword, the same sword she had given him for his 15th birthday. When he was still a Genin, Hayate had proclaimed that he would be Konoha's greatest sword master, one that even surpassed the Kiri Shinobi Katana Nanan and Shu. They had been dating for nearly 4 years at that time. She had given him this sword as a way of telling him that she believed he would succeed. He had never used another sword since then. She ran her finger along the blade. Even after nearly 8 years, it was still as sharp as the day she gave it to him. Why? She had never been so glad that she was wearing a mask. It made sure none of her comrades could see the tears streaming down her face. As an Anbu, she was not allowed to show emotion while on duty. To do so was to disgrace the Anbu name. They were the elite, and the elite never gave in to their emotions. And yet, she could not stop herself from crying, from feeling as if her entire life had died the day Hayate had been killed. As she stared at the body, she watched as it began to disappear along with the rest of the surrounding area, engulfing her entire world in black. XXXXXXXXXXXXXX. She woke up with a slight gasp, her eyes opening as one of the many nightmares she had had during the past 4 years ended. Yugao had to shut them almost immediately afterwards as the light caused her overly sensitive eyes discomfort. She opened them again, this time slower to let her eyes adjust. When she did, she automatically recognized the room as one of the many in Konoha's hospital. She wondered how she had gotten here. Last thing she remembered was Yugao? Yugao turned her head ever so slightly as the voice registered in her ears, and found herself staring into the blue-eyed, whiskered face of Naruto. She blinked for a second as she recognized his face and put a name from her memories to it. Naruto? Naruto nodded. How are you feeling? You know, you had me really worried. He trailed off as he noticed the look in her eyes. What happened? She asked. You went on a mission and were ambushed. One of your Anbu managed to make it here and a rescue squad got put together. Naruto answered. Why am I still alive? She asked after a moment's pause, her voice dead. Naruto frowned. Why would you ask something like that, Yugao? Yugao's looked at him, her eyes completely dead, and the eyes of someone who had given up. Why am I still here? I shouldn't be alive, I should have died on my mission. You're alive because I saved you, the blonde said as he studied her reaction. He could see a few emotions flit across her eyes: shock, surprise, realization that she was not dead, and the most unusual one, despair. Why couldn't you just let me die? She said lowly. Why can't you and everyone else just let me die? Naruto's eyes widened in shock, but Yugao just continued with ever-increasing volume. I should not have survived that mission. I wasn't supposed to survive that mission. That was the whole point of going on these missions. I should have died. At least then I cowl. She didn't get to finish her sentence as Naruto smacked her across the face. Yugao felt her eyes widen as she brought one of her hands to her stinging face. She turned her head and looked at Naruto. Said blonde was gritting his teeth as hot tears ran down his face. How could you ever say something like that? Naruto asked, his voice a mixture of hurt and anger. How could you possibly say things like this? Do you know how many people here would be hurt if you died? What about us? Do you even care how much it would hurt everyone to lose you? What about Kurina and Enko? You're one of their best and only friends, they'd be devastated if you got yourself killed. Hell, they're hurting right now, cause every day they have to look at you and all they can see is a woman who died inside, a shell of their former best friend. Naruto lowered the hand he had used to slap the purple-haired woman as he continued, "And what about me?" he whispered. "You were one of the few people who did not see me as some kind of monster, as the demon my father sealed inside of me. My childhood was fucking shit, but you know what? I would gladly suffer through all that again, if it meant I would have met you. Do you realize how much it would hurt me if you died?" Yugao opened her mouth a few times as she tried to think of something to say. Eventually tears of frustration began to fall down her face. But Hayate. Do you really think Hayate would want you to give up your life like this?" Naruto asked in a soft voice. "Do you think this would make him happy? To see the proud and strong kunoichi he loved like this, dead to the world and unable to move on." "But we were going to get married," Yugao said as she began to cry in earnest. "We should have been married. How can I live on when the one I'm supposed to spend my life with is dead?" Yugao's breathing began to get heavy as she continued to cry, her tears blurring her vision. She knew it was wrong of her to cry, to show emotions that as an Anbu was a disgrace. That was why she had focused on her work, and began taking suicide missions, that way no one could see her pain, not that it helped. And now she had bottled them up inside for so long, never giving in to them, that she was no longer able to keep them under lock and key. It was because of her tears that she was unable to see when Naruto moved, sitting down on the bed close to her. She stiffened when she felt a pair of arms wrap around her, pulling her into a comforting embrace. As she felt the natural warmth that Naruto exuded, her mind became conflicted. A part of her could not stand being in the young man's arms, feeling as if doing so was betraying the love she had for Hayate. Yet another part, the part that she had been feeling since she woke up at Naruto's house last month, wanted nothing more than to feel any comfort he could give her. "Hayate wouldn't want you to be like this," Naruto said, holding her currently stiff form to him. "I can tell you right now that if you died and met him as you are, I doubt he'd even recognize you as the woman he loved. He would want you to move on with your life." "How can you be so sure?" Yugao asked, her voice cracking with emotion. "Because..." Naruto paused for a moment before continuing, "because I wouldn't want you to be like this if I had been in his place." Yugao's form began to relax at Naruto's words, her body molding itself to Naruto's as he held her. One of her hands came up and clutched at his shirt and grabbed fistfuls of it, her face buried itself in Naruto's well-muscled chest. Naruto held onto the woman tighter, one hand holding her to him while the other ran itself through her hair. He did not say anything, knowing that words of comfort were not what she needed right now, merely acted as a comforting presence to let her know that he was here for her. For what seemed like hours, but in truth were only a few minutes, the two stayed like that. Naruto felt Yugao's breathing begin to slow and even out, her hand which had been gripping his shirt in an ironclad grip lessened, though it still held on. Looking down, he noticed that she had fallen asleep. Being careful not to wake her, Naruto gently laid Yugao on the bed. He moved a bit to try and go back to his seat, but stopped when he felt Yugao tighten her grip on his shirt again and a small whimper escaped from her throat. He moved back to his previous position, leaning himself against the headboard of the bed as he pried Yugao's hand off of him. He laced one of his own with it, using the other to caress the back of her hand. Naruto turned his head when he heard the door open, smiling lightly when he saw Sakura walk in. "Hey," Naruto greeted as the pink-haired girl walked up to him. "Hey Naruto," Sakura said as she looked from him to Yugao and back again. "The hospital will be closing soon, I'm sorry but you're going to have to leave." "Do you think I could stay, Sakura?" Naruto asked as he looked at her. "I would like to be here for her when she wakes up again." Sakura blinked. "She woke up? When?" "Just a few minutes ago," Naruto answered, leaving out the fact that Yugao had cried since Sakura did not seem to know about that. "So do you think I could stay here?" he asked again. Sakura frowned a bit, but with the look Naruto was giving her, she knew that she would not be able to say no. Though she had the feeling that even if she did, Naruto would not listen to her and stay anyways. Well, I guess it's alright," she looked at him, "just don't break anything, okay? And if you even think of doing something perverted." She let the threat hang in the air. "You don't have to worry about that, I'm not Hiro-sensei," Naruto said as he gave her a smile. "Thanks, Sakura." Sakura smiled back as she checked Yugao's vitals over. Finding nothing wrong, she bade Naruto goodnight before leaving. Naruto closed his eyes as he leaned his head back, attempting to get comfortable despite the hardwood his head was resting against. He let his thoughts leave him as he drifted off to sleep. XXXXXXXXXXXX. For the first time in 4 years, Yugao woke up feeling oddly at peace. She kept her eyes closed for the moment as she tried to keep this feeling for as long as possible, snuggling her face deeper into the body-length pillow in front of her and tightening her hold on it. She frowned for a moment as she felt the pillow move of its own accord, a light up and down movement. Cracking her eyes open, she saw that her pillow was in fact not a pillow, but rather someone's backside. For a moment she was tempted to scream, but her training kicked in and let her take stock of the situation before doing something rash. The first thing was to find out where she was. Turning her head, she saw the white tiles of the hospital ceiling. She pushed herself up slightly to look over the body and saw cabinets filled with medicine. That was when she remembered she had woken up in the hospital yesterday, however she had not been alone when she did. Looking down, she took notice of the person next to her, the one she had been holding onto like a teddy bear. It was Naruto. Her mind went back to the day before and how the blonde confronted and comforted her. Did he not leave last night? Yugao wondered to herself, feeling oddly warm at the thought that Naruto might have stayed here all night just for her. Naruto, Yugao said as she gently shook him. Naruto, wake up. Naruto mumbled something incoherent, though Yugao could swear she heard him say something about ramen. She almost giggled as she remembered him saying something similar when he was younger. Come on Naruto, you have to wake up. Yugao shook him a little harder, this time getting a reaction from him. Naruto turned around, lying on his back as his eyes cracked open and looking at Yugao. Yugao-chan? He asked, his voice deeper than usual due to how groggy he was. Yugao felt a little bit of heat come to her cheeks at hearing her name being called in what sounded like a sensual manner, though she had the feeling Naruto did not even know how his voice sounded right now. Yugao merely nodded at him. Yes, it's me and it's time for you to get up. As Naruto began to feel more alert, his mind finally processed two things. 1. Yugao was here telling him to get up, and 2. He was lying in a bed and Yugao was leaning right over him, obviously lying in the same bed. Naruto shot out of the bed and away from the woman like a rocket. Oh Kami. I'm so sorry Yugao, I don't even remember falling asleep. I didn't mean to. He was cut off as Yugao actually did giggle, finding the sight of a completely flustered Naruto amusing. It's okay, I'm not mad at you, Yugao assured him. In fact, I would like to thank you. You do? Naruto scratched the back of his head as he felt his blush receding. What for? For helping me last night, Yugao said with a small smile. I want to thank you for what you said, and did. After Hayate died, I felt like a part of me had too, and I wanted nothing more than to die so that I could join him. But I know that Hayate would never want me to just waste my life away. In fact, the last thing he told me was that no matter what my happiness would always be the most important thing to him. Naruto saw the small amount of tears coming to Yugao's eyes and sat back down on the bed, pulling her to him the same way he did last night. This time Yugao didn't resist as she snuggled her head into his chest, wrapping her arms around him as she let the blonde's natural warmth comfort her. You know you never have to thank me for helping you Yugao, Naruto said. I will always be here for you. No matter what. Yugao smiled as she held onto the blonde shinobi, letting out a content sigh as the feeling she had been getting from him pervaded her senses. It was almost the exact same thing she had felt with Hayate. I hope I'm not interrupting something. The two cuddling ninja jumped apart when they heard the voice speak up. Turning their heads, they saw Shizune looking at them with a grin. My Naruto, you're working fast, and to think you're already quite cozy with the Mizukage and that blonde Kumoku no Ichi too. Yugao looked at Naruto with a mixture of surprise and a small amount of jealousy. Though why she was feeling jealous even she did not know. Meanwhile Naruto was blushing up a storm. Shizune-chan, why do you have to say things like that? Shizune laughed as she walked further into the room. Sorry, I guess I couldn't help myself. It's not often I get to see you so flustered. It's good to see you awake Yugao-san. Shizune looked over at the purple-haired Anbu with a smile. Thank you Shizune-san, Yugao replied. How long was I out? About a week, Shizune replied, causing Yugao's eyes to widen. If Naruto had not gotten you here when he had, I doubt you would have made it. The purple-haired woman looked over at Naruto, who had a light blush. Shizune also noticed his blush and grinned. You know, Naruto rarely ever left your side since he got you here. In fact, if Tsunade-sama had not forced him to take D-rank missions this month, I'm sure he wouldn't have left your side at all. Yugao looked over at Naruto, whose blush seemed to have increased in hue and intensity. She blinked as she registered some of what Shizune said. What do you mean made him take D-rank missions? She asked with curiosity lacing her voice. Naruto opened his mouth to say it was nothing, but Shizune beat him to it. Naruto here had actually been ordered not to go and rescue you. However, he told Tsunade-sama to shove her orders up her ass and went after you anyway, Shizune said, putting quotation marks up when she mentioned Naruto's words. Yugao's mouth opened as she gaped at Naruto, who had his head down to hide his face. Shizune continued on as if heedless to the blonde's embarrassment. Because of that, Naruto was forced on a 1-month probationary period where he can't leave the village, and has to do 31D ranked missions. To be honest, I think it's kind of romantic and sweet that he's willing to go so far for you. Did you really do all those things for me? Yugao asked, a smile and a light blush on her face. Well, of course, Naruto said as he put a hand behind his head. You're one of my precious people, remember? I always look after my precious people. Yugao's smile widened a tad. Yugao-san, now that you're awake, I'm going to allow you to leave the hospital, Shizune said. However, I had a talk with both Tsunade-sama and your Anbu commander. They both agreed that you will not be allowed to do any seriously strenuous activity for several weeks. That means no missions. Yugao opened her mouth to protest, but a hand on her own stopped her. Looking up, her gaze turned to Naruto, the owner of the hand. He shook his head, letting her know that he also thought she should lay off the missions. Yugao sighed. Very well, I suppose I could try and find something else to occupy my time. Shizune noticed the byplay but chose to ignore it this time. Great. Then that means that you can leave at any time. Bye, Yugao-san, Naruto-kun. With nothing left to say, the black-haired medical ninja left the room. For a moment the two occupants left in the room were silent. Naruto looked at the purple-haired woman before standing up, keeping her hand in his as he pulled Yugao to her feet. Well, I don't know about you, Yugao, but all this emotional stuff and everything has left me starving. Yugao gave a small smile at hearing the typical Naruto comment. Said blonde looked over at her with a grin. How about I take you out to get some lunch? He offered. Yugao looked at him for a moment before smiling and nodding in agreement. Okay, so long as you're paying. Great, Naruto said in an enthusiastic voice as he took off, taking Yugao with him. I'll let you choose the restaurant, now let's go. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Yugao hummed a small tune as she and Naruto walked to her apartment. They had just got finished with breakfast. Yugao had Naruto taken her to a small cafe that she used to enjoy going to. Like he had promised, he paid for their food. Afterwards she had decided that she did not really want to go back to her apartment yet. Naruto had offered to accompany her around the village. Despite telling him it was unnecessary, he had not taken no for an answer. While she refused to say anything, Yugao was glad he refused to leave her alone. Naruto had been able to keep away the pain that had yet to fade away from Hayate's death. As they stopped at the front of her apartment, Yugao froze, looking at the place that she and Hayate had lived in for so many years. Part of the reason she had not wanted to return after breakfast was simply because she had not wanted to face the memories this place had for her now that she was not quite as emotionally deadened as she had been. I don't think I can go in there, Yugao said in a soft whisper, so soft that Naruto, even with his enhanced hearing, almost missed it. Thankfully he hadn't responded by wrapping his arms around her waist, pulling her back flush up against his chest. I know it's hard, Yugao-chan, but I think you need to do this, for your own peace of mind, Naruto said in a comforting voice. Don't worry, I'll be here with you. Yugao nodded as Naruto's arms disengaged from her. Grabbing her hand, he led her to the front door. Yugao pulled out a key, unlocking the door and opening it. She and Naruto stepped inside the place that she had lived for somewhere around a decade, the place that held so many fond memories, one that, while they brought great joy, also held a great pain for her now. She was shaken out of her thoughts when an arm wrapped around her waist. Looking over, she saw Naruto giving her an encouraging smile. Taking a deep breath, she began to walk around the apartment, never leaving the safety of Naruto's half-embrace. The apartment was like most of the ones found in Konoha. There were a total of 4 rooms. A bedroom, a bathroom, a kitchen and a living room, all of which had the standard living appliances, couches, tables, television and the like. However, due to her Anbu status, this apartment was a little larger, being about 30% larger than most other apartments. As they walked around, Naruto took notice of all the pictures that were hung up around the wall. Most of them were of Yugao and Hayate. However, he also noticed a few that were of her Anbu squad and her team when she was a Jinan. He smiled when he noticed a picture of himself in her. It was outside of his old apartment. He was being held by her piggyback style with a large grin on his face. He could not quite remember when they had taken that, but he had that exact same one that until recently, he had kept hidden under his bed, afraid that if the people who would occasionally break into his apartment saw it, would make her life miserable. They made it to the last stop, the bedroom. Yugao's hand hesitated on the knob before she turned it and entered, Naruto following right behind her. The room was much like his old apartment, except much cleaner, with a larger bed and more pictures. He looked over at Yugao, who had moved away from him, and towards the bed. Naruto walked behind her. Looking at the bed, he saw that there were two impressions. It was obvious who they belonged to, and he was surprised that they were still there after so much time had passed. Understanding came to as he once again held Yugao in a comforting embrace. "You haven't slept here since he died, have you?" Yugao shook her head. "No, I haven't. I couldn't bear the thought of sleeping here alone anymore. Usually if I ever came home I would take the couch. Most of the time I wasn't even here. I normally crashed at Enko's or Kurenai's place." Naruto nodded his head in understanding. He knew that staying at the place where you used to live with a now dead loved one would be hard. While he himself had never lost someone, he knew that if any of the women in his life died, he would be exactly as Yugao was. He closed his eyes as he pulled Yugao closer, placing his head on her shoulder as he nuzzled into her neck. "If you'd like, you don't have to live here," Naruto said, surprising the purple-haired woman. "Where would I stay?" asked Yugao after a moment. "You could stay with me," Naruto told her, making the woman in his arms turn around in surprise. "Stay with you? You would let me do that?" Yugao asked in shock. Naruto just gave Yugao a smile. Leaning over, he planted a chaste kiss on her forehead. "Of course I would. Remember what I told you in the hospital? I will always be here for you. That means I will help you in any way I can. And if living with me will in some way help you, then I don't have a problem with it." "Thank you," Yugao said, her voice cracking with emotion. She wrapped her own arms around Naruto, pulling herself closer as she nuzzled her head into his chest. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Yugao placed the picture of her and Hayate Ajanan on the nightstand next to her new bed, letting her fingers glide over the smooth glass before withdrawing. She looked around the room. Her room, it was the same one Naruto had placed her in when he carried her home after finding her drunk. It was now her permanent state of residence, for the time being at least. All of her stuff had been unpacked yesterday. Her pictures of her, Hayate and other people of importance were hung up, her clothing was put away and her toiletries were in the restroom. Naruto had been a big help, not really with putting anything away, but with being there for her when she had found something that reminded her of Hayate, which was pretty much everything. Giving the room one last look, Yugao went into the restroom. She had not taken a shower since before her last mission and was feeling pretty grimy. Stepping into the restroom, the purple-haired Anbu went over to the shower and turned the water on. Stepping back, she took off her clothes she had fallen asleep in, ones that Naruto had gotten for her when she had been in a coma, and put them in a bin. She moved over to look at herself in the mirror, her fingers lightly tracing the new scars she had gotten from this last mission. She had quite a few of them. Most of the scars were merely small white lines, almost unnoticeable against her pale skin. However, she had several that were much larger and were a more angry red in color, the scars she had gotten from when Kabuto had placed those parasites in her. She tore her gaze away from the scars and stepped into the shower, placing her hands against the wall and leaning against it. She let the hot water loosen her muscles. A small groan of satisfaction escaped her throat before she grabbed some soap and started scrubbing herself down. When Yugao finished, she turned off the shower and stepped out, grabbing 2 towels and drying herself off. She then wrapped one around her body and the other around her hair. Walking out of the bathroom, Yugao moved over to her dresser and then her closet, grabbing her clothes to get dressed. Yugao threw her towels in a clothes hamper before changing and leaving her room, walking into the hall and down the stairs. When she reached the bottom, a sweet-smelling aroma that hit her, letting her know that Naruto was already up and making breakfast. Walking into the kitchen, she saw that Naruto was indeed up and already finished making the food. He already had food piled on his plate, though it looked like he had yet to eat. "Morning, Naruto," Yugao said a little timidly, feeling somewhat unsure how to react around the blonde now. Naruto looked up at the purple-haired woman and smiled. "Morning, Yugao-chan." Naruto stood up and walked over to her. Gently taking her arm, the blonde guided her to the table, where he had already set up a plate with some Chanokuni imported tea. "How did you sleep?" he asked as he sat himself back down. "I slept well," Yugao replied, "better than I have for a while anyway." "I'm pleased to hear that," Naruto said, giving her a smile before he started eating. Yugao began to put some food on her plate and eat. Just like last time, the food was absolutely delicious. For the most part, they ate breakfast quietly, making a bit of light conversation about anything so long as it was not ninja related. "Hey Naruto." Yugao got the attention of the blonde male. "Where's that girl who's staying here? Fu, I think her name was." "Oh, her." Naruto chuckled a bit. Yugao had met Fu in passing last night before the green-haired girl left to go out to dinner with Shino. She's probably with Shino. They both tend to wake up early and explore Konoha to search for new insects. Yugao raised an eyebrow at the information but shrugged it off. She already knew that Fu was the container for the Nanabi no Kabuta Mushi, so the girl's like of insects was not too surprising. When they finished, Naruto created a cage bunshine and had it take away their plates. Naruto looked over at Yugao and tilted his head to the side. Yugao-chan, I was wondering if you were doing anything later today? Naruto asked. Yugao shook her head. No, because I'm on medical leave I won't be doing anything. In that case, after I do my D-rank mission for the day, would you like to get something to eat with me? Naruto asked. Yugao looked at the blonde in surprise. You mean like a date? While the idea of dating Naruto was not unappealing, she knew that he was already engaged to 4 other women. She had after all been in the council meeting when the announcement was made. And if what Shizune said is true, one is the Mizukage and the other is a Kunoichi from Kumo. Also there was the fact that she had only just started getting over Hayate's death. Could she really date someone so soon after starting to move on, even if said person was the reason she was able to in the first place? Naruto squirmed a bit, feeling oddly embarrassed at asking his, admittedly childhood crush to do something that could be construed as a date with him. Well, I mean it doesn't have to be if you don't want it to. Naruto looked down at the table. I just thought it might be nice if we could do something together. We haven't really gotten the chance to see each other since I started the academy. I would love to spend some time with you, Naruto-kun, Yugao said with a small smile. She felt she should at least spend some time with the young man. Naruto had helped her when she could not help herself. If for no other reason than that she would spend time with him, the fact that she also heard a voice in her head telling her that she wanted to date Naruto helped with her decision as well. Naruto grinned as he stood up. In that case, I'll be back sometime around 4 or 5. I left some money on the counter for you to use for whatever you want. I already told you about the security system and you're recognized by the blood seal. Just remember to flare your chakra when you want to get in. Naruto walked over to her and gave her a kiss on the forehead, giving her a goodbye before leaving. Yugao blushed a bit at Naruto's somewhat intimate gesture. She shook her head and stood up. Walking over to the counter and spotted the money, picking it up, she nearly gasped at the amount. There was more money in here than a standard A-rank mission. She put about half of it back, not needing that much and not wanting to spend all of Naruto's money since he was letting her stay here. Yugao put the money in her pocket before walking out of the house, opening the gate and leaving for the market district to do some shopping. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto let Yugao lead him as they walked down the street. They were in one of the less populated market districts of Konoha. Yugao had told the blonde that there was a really good restaurant she wanted to go to here. Looking up as they turned, Naruto saw Yugao leading him to one of the smaller restaurants. As the two walked up, Naruto opened the door for Yugao and let her go inside before him. Following Yugao, they were met with the hostess, who led them to one of the booths near a window. The two sat down on opposite sides and for a while neither spoke, letting a somewhat awkward silence prevail between them. So, Naruto said as he grabbed one of the menus, anything happened today? Internally the blonde let out a curse at how lame that sounded, like he was some kind of love-struck little kid. It felt as if all of that time he spent with the opposite sex after leaving Konoha had been for nothing. Yugao seemed to notice this and brought up a hand as she gave a soft giggle, causing the blonde to pout. Not much, she said with a light amount of amusement in her eyes, though I did do some shopping. I'm surprised, Naruto said in a slightly teasing voice. I thought you always hated shopping. It was one of the things he remembered about the purple-haired Anbu. Back when she had been his bodyguard and somewhat caretaker, Yugao had serious issues shopping for anything. In fact, oftentimes she would have Hayate do the shopping as she was liable to cause a ruckus trying to find what she wanted. Yugao's skin took on a light pink in color. I wasn't that bad. Naruto grinned. You obviously forgot that one time you took me grocery shopping. You almost blew up half the store. That was completely different. Yugao tried to defend herself, and he was being an ass and a pervert. During that incident, Yugao had taken Naruto to buy some groceries so that he would eat more than just ramen, much to the blonde's displeasure at the time. However, the cashier and everyone who worked there in general had not been in the least bit helpful. Though the cashier had been particularly bad, not only insulting and trying to kick out Naruto like the others, but also insulting Yugao and then trying to hit on her. She had actually very nearly chopped the guy's head off, both of them, and probably would have had he not made a break for it. Besides, Yugao continued, from what I remember you were not much better. Naruto had the decency to look sheepish. The blonde had actually smashed into the man like a rocket when he started insulting Yugao. That had almost gotten Naruto a beating. Luckily Yugao had been there and had decided to give her sword arm a workout. Yeah well, I wasn't about to let him get away with insulting you. And he's just lucky it was when I was younger. Had it been a few years later he would have gotten pranked like a motherfucker. Language Naruto-kun, Yugao scolded, though it was half-hearted at best. Her mind then went to some of the pranks he had done. Ah yes, I remember your pranks quite well. You always gave us Anbu a workout. The purple-haired woman smiled at the memory. The prankster king from hell, that was your nickname. Naruto grinned as a waiter came up to take their orders. Naruto got pad thai noodles while Yugao ordered the sushi platter. The rest of the dinner between the two was spent reminiscing and sharing stories with each other, Naruto telling the purple-haired woman about his time in Kuri, Kumo, and Yukiharu. Yugao shared stories of her time as a Jonin, Chunin, and Jonin, telling Naruto of some of the things she had seen and done during that time. When the food came the two quieted down to eat, letting a now comfortable silence settle between them. When the two were finished Naruto paid for the food before they left, making their way home. XXXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto opened the door to the Namikaze estate, letting Yugao enter first before he followed. Doing off his shoes Naruto looked over at Yugao. Said woman was sitting by on one of the couches, looking off into space. Naruto followed her example and sat himself down next to her, not saying anything as he waited to see if she would. When she did not Naruto turned and placed a hand on Yugao's shoulder, startling the purple-haired woman out of her trance. Why don't you go get some sleep, Naruto suggested, you look kind of tired. Yugao shook her head, I'm alright. She looked at Naruto and gave him a smile, you can go if you want. I think I'll stay up a little longer. Alright, Naruto said with a small sigh. He knew there were reasons she was not telling him, but he did not want to pry. Leaning over Naruto gave Yugao a chaste kiss on the temple, causing the purple-haired Anbu to feel her face get a little warm. Good night Yugao-chan, Naruto said in a soft whisper as he walked upstairs. Yugao watched the blonde go with a small smile on her face. Good night Naruto-kun. XXXXXXXXXX. Yugao gave a soft sigh as her body entered the warm water of the hot springs, stretching her body out in the water to loosen her muscles. She was glad Naruto had convinced her to come here. It had been a while since she had gone to the hot springs. She had not realized how much she had missed just being able to relax like this. Yugao leaned her head against the wall behind her, closing her eyes as she felt herself going into a light sleep. Yugao felt herself waking as several voices came from behind the spring entranceway. She looked over to the door as it slid open. Enko, Kurenai and Hana walked into the hot springs. As the three walked into the water they stopped talking when they noticed Yugao sitting in the corner. Hey there Yugao-chan, Enko said in a pleased yet slightly surprised voice, I'm surprised to see you here, and without even inviting us. The snake mistress finished with a slight pout. Sorry I would have invited you guys too but... Yugao trailed off a bit at the end, unsure whether she should tell them she was actually here with Naruto. Don't worry about it, Kurenai said as she and the other girls sat down next to her. Enko knows better than to try and pry into people's personal reasons, don't you Enko? Enko gave her a pout before relenting. She, Kurenai and Hana moved towards Yugao, sitting around the purple-haired woman before taking up conversation again. You know we haven't seen you for a while, Kurenai said as she looked the woman over. Yugao was looking much better now than she had been in years. Kurenai was not sure what had happened to her friend but was pleased to see her more at peace and happy. I know, Yugao said as she looked into the water with a frown. I'm sorry for worrying you guys, I guess I just had some stuff that I needed to sort out. 4 years worth of stuff? Enko asked with a semi-sarcastic tone. Yugao flinched at the reminder of just how long it had taken her to begin moving on from Hayate's death. As a kunoichi it was actually somewhat disgraceful to take so long since she knew that death was a constant in their line of work. What made it worse was that had Naruto not helped her, she doubted she would have started getting better anytime soon. In fact, had Naruto not helped me I would have died before getting anywhere close to being over Hayate-kun's death. Fortunately for her, Kurenai decided to help her out. Enko, you really shouldn't be like that, you know how she and. The Genjutsu mistress stopped herself from saying Hayate's name, knowing that it was probably a sensitive topic for Yugao. It's alright Kurenai, Yugao said as she looked at her. I know I should have been stronger. Hayate's death hit me unnaturally hard and I was never really able to begin picking up the pieces until recently. A small smile appeared on her face as she thought how, or rather who was helping her pick up the pieces of her life. The other three looked at each other in curiosity, Kurenai and Enko in particular. as they had been trying to help the woman get herself back together for 4 years. Both of them were wondering what happened in the past month or so to help the purple-haired woman. While Kurenai was looking at Yugao in curiosity, Enko on the other hand had the wheels in her mind turning as she tried to figure out what had happened. She blinked for a second when she remembered a certain blonde shinobi asking about Yugao during several of their sparring sessions together. A large smile spread across Enko's face. Did a certain blonde Yondai Megaki look-alike worm his way into your heart? Yugao looked away, having never been so glad her face was already red from being in the hot springs. However, Enko still managed to pick up on her embarrassed demeanor. He did, didn't he? Enko spoke with a knowing grin. I can't believe it, we try for 4 years to get through to you and this kid does it less than 3 months after coming back from his training. The other two looked from Yugao to Enko, wondering who the snake mistress was talking about. Who are you talking about, Enko? Asked Hana as she tried to figure out what was going on. Enko's grin widened as she began speaking. I'm surprised you don't know. After all, not many people look like the Yondaime but with whiskers. In fact, I know only one person who matches that description. Kurenai's eyes widened as she looked at Enko. You don't mean Naruto, do you? Enko nodded with a smirk. The one and the same. It seems our Yugao has some past history with that delicious-looking blonde. Enko. Kurenai and Yugao shouted, one scandalized and one both scandalized and embarrassed at their friend's blatant and cavalier remark. What? Enko asked with a shrug of her shoulders. Neither of you can deny the man is hot. Why, if I didn't have Iruka-kun I would. Yugao, Kurenai and Hana all found themselves immensely grateful that they already had a semi-red face from the heat, since if they didn't the blush on their face would have been that much more prominent as they listened to all of the sexual acts Enko would commit on Naruto if not for the fact that she was dating Iruka. It was particularly bad for Yugao, who despite the fact that she had still not fully gotten over Hayate could not deny that the thought of being with the blonde shinobi was not unpleasant. Several images of her and Naruto flew into her head, causing her blush to deepen. Yep, not unpleasant in the least. Thankfully for the three, help arrived in the form of a voice from the male side of the hot springs. Enko-chan, as much as I'm sure they all love hearing about how you would rape me, I would appreciate if you stop. The three women who had not known that Naruto was there blinked before feeling heat coming to their face. Even Enko found a bit of a blush coming across her cheeks. Naruto continued on as if heedless of the conversation that had just gone on. Yugao-chan, I'm heading out for now, I'll see you back at home, okay? Yugao felt her face begin to literally burn up as the other three women stared at her, two looking shocked and one with another large grin on her face. Okay, Naruto-kun. She replied only to cover her mouth as she saw Enko's grin growing even wider and realized she had used an affectionate suffix for the blonde. So, Enko said with a slight drawl and a perverse gleam, you're living with Naruto-kun, eh? Yugao's blush deepened, something that Yugao had not thought was possible given just how red her face already was. She had really only just started calling Naruto-kun but for some reason it just felt right. She felt comfortable using such an affectionate suffix on the blonde. At least she would be if Enko was not looking at her with a rather large and knowing grin, and that perverted gleam in her eyes. You must be quite comfortable with the guy to be calling him that, Enko continued, and did I hear right when he said see you at home? Does that mean you're living with him? And to think you didn't tell us this, for shame. Kurenai and Hana both looked at Yugao who became increasingly more and more embarrassed. Both were unsure what to make of this new development. Hana, while being friends with the purple-haired Anbu, was not close enough to her to really say anything for or against Yugao's decision to live with Naruto, and if she were honest with herself, she would admit that she might take up living with the blonde if offered the chance. Especially if what Uraka-san said about his alpha presence was true. Kurenai on the other hand was not sure what to think. Yugao had been devastated by Hayate's death for over 4 years, and now she was getting close to Naruto who nearly a decade her junior. Yugao looked around as she tried to figure a way out of this. Well, look at the time, I should really be getting back home. Yugao took off, trying to get away from Enko before she said more. However, Enko managed to get one last comment before the now thoroughly flustered Yugao could leave. Be sure to use protection. And don't do anything I wouldn't do. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Yugao sighed as she looked out over the backyard and starry sky, her thoughts drifting to what had been going on within the past few weeks. So much had happened to turn her life around, she was not even sure how it happened. All she really knew was that it was because of one person who she had admittedly not really thought about for years. Ever since Naruto had come back from his training with Jiraiya, even during their few short meetings, Yugao had actually begun to feel again. She was startled from her thoughts when a voice spoke up behind her. "You know, you'll catch a cold if you stay out here all night." Turning around, Yugao saw Naruto with 2 cups of steaming liquid. The blonde shinobi walked up to her and gave her what she recognized as tea. "Thank you," Yugao said as she took a small sip. She turned her head back towards the backyard. "You're welcome," Naruto replied with a smile as he took a drink from his own cup. The two sat in comfortable silence for a while, looking out over the night sky. "It's quite beautiful, isn't it?" Naruto said as he looked at the stars. Yugao looked at the young man as he spoke. "When I was with Ero-sensei, I would always look up at the stars. They were a lot more clear when you're out in the wilderness." Yugao giggled a little bit at the nickname that he gave Jiraiya. "You know, that's just like you to give a nickname like that to one of Konoha's most powerful shinobi, Naruto-kun." Naruto grinned. "You know, I've been told that quite often. At least you're not getting angry like some of the other people I know." Yugao just smiled. "After watching you barge into the Hokage's office when you were 5 and listening to you call the Hokage Oji-san, I long since stopped getting surprised. You were always such a loud little kid. It looks like that hasn't changed at all." "Hey," Naruto said, puffing his cheeks out at Yugao's teasing, "I'll have you know I'm way more mature than I used to be." "You sure about that?" Yugao said with a teasing smirk. "You still seem like a bit of brat to me, Naruto-chan." Naruto gaped for a moment. His eyes were wide and his mouth was hanging open as he registered what Yugao just called him. "You haven't called me that since I was 5, he said in a dumb-sounding voice. Yugao just snickered. "Looks like I win this round, Naruto-kun." Naruto sighed as he mumbled about hot purple-haired Anbu women being too good for their own good. Yugao blushed a bit since Naruto had made sure to be just loud enough for her to hear. Spotting it, Naruto grinned. "Looks like I get the last laugh after all, Yu-chan." Yugao looked at him for a moment as her mind blanked. Yu-chan had been the nickname Hayate had given her. He had started calling her that during their time at the academy. The memory was no longer painful, or at least as painful to think about, something she attributed to the help of the young man beside her. She looked at the young blonde out of the corner of her eye as she replayed the way he said her nickname in her head, and decided that she could get used to being called that by him. Yugao finished her tea and watched as a clone phased into existence right next to her, grabbing hers and Naruto's cup before leaving. "You're getting better with that technique, aren't you?" she asked. Naruto grinned. "That and my chakra control, I try to work on it as much as possible. Hell, if it weren't for the Kyuubi, I may even be able to do some of the medical jutsu with the control I possess now." Yugao looked at him before smiling. She scooted herself a bit closer to the blonde until their shoulders were touching. Naruto looked at the woman before grinning. "Why, Yu-chan, are my manly charms finally getting to you?" Yugao blushed but managed to cover it up with a snort. "Manly charms, my ass, you just happen to be the closest heat source and I'm cold." "You could go inside if you're cold," Naruto said with a twinkle in his eyes. "It's okay if you admit that you think I'm too attractive for my own good. Do that and I'll admit that you are easily one of the sexiest kunoichi I ever met." This time the purple-haired could not hide her blush, however that turned into a frown. "Don't you already have 2 women you're close to?" she asked. Naruto looked at her oddly for a moment. "Yeah, I am currently engaged to both the Mizukage, Mei Terumi, and Yugito ni, Kumo's Nibi Jinchuriki." Yugao's eyes widened enough that Naruto was afraid they might actually roll out of her sockets. "He engaged?" "Yeah," Naruto said, looking at her with a surprised expression. "I'm surprised you didn't know that. I mean, I know that you were busy with missions, but isn't it a requirement for Anbu to know Konoha clan laws?" It was something he had read about when looking to see if he wanted to get into the Anbu. They were required to be aware of the laws concerning clans, that way they could be careful about overstepping their bounds if something came up with a clan. It had been like that since the Uchiha massacre. Well, yes, Yugao said in embarrassment. Truth was, while she knew the clan laws, she had not really thought about them, or how they pertained to Naruto. I guess I never really thought about it. I mean, it never really sunk in that you're actually the head of your own clan." Naruto nodded. "I suppose it would. I mean, it's not every day that someone goes from clanless orphan to clan head and son of a Hokage, huh? In any case, during my travels around the elemental nation, I ended up falling in love with Mei, Yugito and 2 other women. And no, because of whom they are I can't quite tell you yet. These grounds are pretty secure, but if anyone else were to find out, those other 2 women could be in trouble from some of the enemies I made in this village." Yugao nodded her head in understanding before standing up. "Well, I think I'm going to go to bed. Good night, Naruto." Naruto watched Yugao walk off with a small frown. Did he say something wrong? XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Yugao listened to Anko telling her and Kurenai about some guy she got to torture a few days ago. As they were walking towards the dango shop the 3 used to frequent, Well, Yugao wasn't really listening to what the woman said, so much as keeping an ear open while thinking of her own problems. Something she had been thinking about for quite a while, that problem being the conflict in her mind about one Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. The three women made their way into the Dengo shop and went to the booth they used every time they had been here. Yugao shook the thoughts of Naruto off for the moment, turning her attention back to Enko. "So Enko, how are you and Iruka doing?" she asked, hoping to get the bloodthirsty woman off the topic of how she tortured some poor sap. Enko grinned. "Oh, we're great, he's such a sweetie and the sex is great, so I can't complain." Enko hummed happily to herself, while her general demeanor had not changed from bloodthirsty psychopath. She had been a lot happier since she started dating the Chunin Academy teacher. Enko looked over at Kurenai. "So Nai-chan, what's this I hear about the possibility of you and Asuma getting married?" Yugao looked over at Kurenai, who had a light tint of pink on her cheeks. "It's nothing definite," Kurenai responded as she tried to will away her blush. "It's just something we talked about." "You know that's not what Asuma has been telling people," Enko said with a grin. Kurenai narrowed her eyes. "Oh, and what has he been saying?" Enko's grin became even more prominent. "Oh, you know, the usual prideful boasts men make when they're with someone as hot as one of us." As Enko began telling Kurenai what she had heard Asuma saying, Yugao turned her attention to other matters. However, Enko and Kurenai seemed to notice how quiet their purple-haired friend was being. "Hey Yugao-chan, what's with the lost look on your face?" Enko asked. "I thought you had gotten rid of that look by now." Yugao blinked a bit as she knocked herself out of her thoughts. "Well, it's just that I was thinking about." She paused in thought for a moment as she wondered if she should tell them. In the end she decided that they should know. After all, they were her best friends and she always used to go to them for advice before when she had been dating Hayate. Maybe they could help her with this problem. "I was thinking about Naruto and..." "Uh-huh, I get it now," Enko said with a sly grin. "So you're having some relationship problems with everyone's favorite blonde gaki? You know Auntie Enko can help you with all of your problems. I find that the best way to get a man is sick my snakes on them. Tie them up so they can't run and then..." "Enko," Kurenai said in a lightly scolding voice before she turned to Yugao. "Just ignore her, Yugao. So what exactly is your problem? I had thought that the two of you were close." "We are." She corrected herself. "It's just that, I mean all of the things we've been doing recently. I feel like I've gotten much closer to him." But what?" asked Kurenai, curious as to what could make her friend so hesitant. Her purple-haired friend had not been hesitant for 2 weeks now, and seeing her so meek was the word. Yes, seeing her so meek was worrying. "Well, you see, Naruto is the last of his clan," Yugao said. "I mean, I guess I never really thought about what that would mean for him. However..." Wait, Enko shouted as she flailed her arms in front of her face. "You're talking about clan laws, right?" At Yugao's nod, Enko's eyes lit with understanding. "So you're having problems because of the laws that he falls under?" Yugao did not say anything, merely nodded to let Enko know she was right. "What laws does he fall under?" Kurenai asked. "I mean, I know that clan laws differ from civilian laws, but they can't be that much different, can they?" While she had 2 clan heirs and an heiress in her former Jinan squad, she had never really studied the laws they lived under. "I'm not surprised you don't know, Nai-chan," Enko said as she turned her attention to the black-haired beauty. "Despite the fact that your Jinan team was comprised of clan heirs, none of them were subject to the laws that Yugao is talking about. You see, since Naruto is the last of his clan, that means that he fall under the CRA or the Clan Restoration Act." Kurenai blinked for a moment before her eyes narrowed as she soon realized what that meant. "You mean he'll have multiple wives?" "Now don't get your panties all bunched up, Nai-chan," Enko said in a defensive tone. "It's not really Naruto's fault." "How is something like this not his fault?" Kurenai asked. Hearing things like this really got her blood boiling. She had always been known as a serious pervert hater. If she found a guy doing anything even remotely perverted and lecherous, she would subject them to some of her most powerful genjutsu. It was part of how she got her nickname of Konoha's Ice Queen. "He doesn't have a choice," Yugao said before Enko could speak up. Kurenai turned to look at her with a curious expression. "Whether he wants to or not, he is subject to the CRA the same way any other male heir would be if they were the last of their clan." "What if the last heir was female?" Kurenai asked. "Then they have to produce a strong male heir by the time of their 18th birthday, so that their son can be placed under the CRA, Enko said. "You know how Konoha likes their bloodlines." "So you're telling me he doesn't have a choice?" Kurenai asked. Yugao shook her head. "It's either he chooses a minimum of 4 wives by the time of his 18th birthday, or the council will set him up with several arranged marriages." And I don't know if you realize it, but Naruto is not very well liked by the council, at least by the Elder and Civilian Council, Enko said. Kurenai looked over at Enko with curiosity in her eyes. Why not? Enko gave the woman a grin that looked to be a mixture of sadistic and content, an odd look even for her. This is just the basic rumor mill that's been going about in the Eon department, but apparently Naruto pretty much managed to kick off the Elders and Civilian Council from all Shinobi-related affairs. Enko leaned back in her chair and heaved a content sigh. He basically stripped them of all power over Shinobi they once had, through some political loopholes. Kurenai raised both eyebrows in surprise. She had not heard of such a thing happening, but then again most Shinobi-related politics were kept from public eyes. Still, she had noticed that Konoha's ninja force had been working a lot more smoothly due to several new laws that had been in place recently. She had just accounted it to Tsunade managing to pass them through votes. While that is impressive, if he can get the civilian and elders on the council stripped of all power, why can't he nullify the clan laws on him? Enko rolled her eyes. You need to read up on the clan charter, Niken. The reason he was able to get rid of the civilian and elders was simply because Konoha laws made it so that the council only had authority over civilian affairs. That little bit of information had been discarded after the QB attack and the Sun Daime retook the seat. However, by that time the council had been able to hoard enough power that the Sun Daime wasn't able to do anything, or he was, but rather was too old and not as strong as he once was to do such a thing. I guess Tsunade-sama just had not realized this little fact until Naruto pointed it out. So why can't he nullify clan laws? Asked Kurenai again, wanting her to get to the point. Enko sighed, because they are just that, laws. They were set down during the founding of our village, you know. He was able to get rid of the civilians biting into Shinobi affairs because they were going against Konoha laws, but the CRA is a clan law and therefore not something he can actually escape. Enko paused for a moment, unless he wants to become a missing ninja. Enko looked over at Yugao now that her explanation was done. So I'm guessing your problem is that you're finding yourself with a little crush on our favorite blonde fox, yet are not sure what to do about it, right? Yugao found herself blushing again. That was exactly what her problem was, only there were a few things that made this harder to deal with. It's not just that. She paused as she looked around, not wanting anyone else to listen to this conversation. She placed one of the silencing seals Naruto had given her under the table. I just found out last night that Naruto is already engaged to 4 women. Both Enko and Kurenai had their eyes widen in shock. Yugao noticed the looks and continued. I don't know what to do because while I'm sure that I like Naruto, possibly even love him, I'm not sure what the other women he's with will say. Or if I'd even be willing to share. Kurenai and Enko frowned as they thought about the problem Yugao was in. After a while it was Kurenai who spoke up. Do you really love him? I'm not sure, Yugao answered with a small frown. I mean, it's only been a few months that I started seeing him again. I hadn't seen him before that since he was 6. Even then we've only started getting close within the past month. The purple-haired woman's frown soon became a smile as she thought about the past month. Yet even though we had not interacted in any way for a long time, Naruto has done everything he can to help me. He's given me a place to stay because it was too painful living in my old apartment. He was the one who brought me to my senses and made me feel alive again. Yugao leaned in conspiratorially despite the fact that there was a silencing barrier up. Did you know that he disobeyed direct orders from the Hokage to rescue me when I had been captured by Ado? Both Enko and Kurenai looked at her in surprise. We didn't, Enko said. Is that why we've seen him doing D ranks around the village? Yugao nodded. Shizune told me that Naruto had told the Hokage to shove her orders up her ass and then left to rescue me. The 2 other women in there both gasped in shock. Well, one gasped in shock, the other coughed so that she would not laugh her ass off. Because of that he was given a 1-month probationary period and has to do 31 D-rank missions, Yugao finished. Wow, Kurenai said in shock. Really, that was the only thing she could say, being too surprised to make any other comments. Wow, I was right, Enko said with a grin. Truthfully, I don't think it's that surprising. Especially with how devoted he seems to be to you, and the people he cares about. Personally, I don't see why you're not already with him and stripping him of his clothes. Enko, Yugao shouted as she hid her face in her hands. Enko merely laughed at her friend's heated face. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Naruto spun 360 degrees, using his momentum to slice apart the last of the clones he had summoned for his battle royal. He looked around and was just about to reseal Susanoo when he heard clapping. Turning around he came face to face with Yugao Uzuki, decked out in Anbu armor and a sword strapped to her waist. Naruto looked at her with a grin as he bowed. Did you enjoy the show? Naruto asked, coming back up with a smirk. I did, Yugao said with her own smirk as she pulled out her blade. In fact, I enjoyed it so much that I decided I have to see how strong you've gotten myself. Naruto grinned as he held his sword near his head, his feet spread apart. Yugao got into her own stance, her sword held in front of her in a vertical position, her feet spread shoulder-width apart and slightly bent. For a moment the two eyed each other. On an unspoken signal the two kicked off the ground. Naruto came in with a swipe at her shoulder. Yugao twisted her body slightly to dodge and came at him with her own attack. Naruto blocked the slash, pivoting on his foot and coming in with a high kick that would hit the purple-haired woman in the face. Yugao ducked under the kick before slashing up, forcing Naruto to jump back and land a few feet away before he launched himself at her again. Naruto had to admit the woman was amazing with a blade. While he himself was no sword master, he was better than most. Yugao was more than capable of blocking and dodging all of his attacks. Each time she did, her movement would set her up in a position to counterattack, which she did often. Thankfully Naruto had the advantage in speed and reaction time, so he was able to keep up with her and counter any attacks she made as well. As the fight continued, Naruto jumped up onto the ceiling, sticking there and gesturing for Yugao to come up. Following the blonde's lead, Yugao jumped onto the ceiling, twisting in mid-flight and landing on her feet, sticking to the ceiling as she channeled chakra to her feet. The two continued their duel, Naruto relying on quick and precise slashes and thrusts to get through the woman's guard while Yugao preferred counters to get the blonde. Several tears appeared on their clothes but neither seemed to notice as they continued their battle. Naruto jumped back as Yugao made a slice at his legs, forcing gravity to take him as he twisted in midair and landed on the ground. He looked up to see Yugao coming towards him with her sword above her head, looking similar to a vengeful angel. She slashed down at him but Naruto's strength allowed him to counter her momentum, and he used the force of her attack to push her off of him and make her flip several feet back. Naruto came in with a small stab, making Yugao move out of the way and bring her sword to the side, letting his blade slide against hers. Not being deterred in the least, the blonde shinobi spun on the balls of his feet, coming in with a slash from the left. It was blocked and Yugao used her blade to redirect his over their heads. That was when she did something he had never expected from her. She disengaged one of her hands from her blade, grabbed him by the shirt and pulled him into a searing kiss. For an instant Naruto froze as he felt Yugao's soft warm lips over his own. However, instinct spread from experience only allowed him to be surprised for so long. He let go of his sword, letting it clatter to the ground as his hands went to Yugao's waist, pulling her closer to him. Likewise, Yugao dropped her own sword, one hand going around Naruto's neck while the other ran through his hair. He felt Yugao licking his lips and opened his mouth, letting her tongue slide into his mouth where her tongue met his in a dance, entwining each other and moving around the other. For what seemed to be an eternity but in truth was only several minutes, the two broke apart. Naruto blinked as his mind snapped back to reality. "Yu-chan, what exactly was that for?" Yugao gave him a smile, though Naruto could tell there was some nervousness in it. "That was a kiss, you know, when a man and woman." "I know what a kiss is," Naruto gave her a mock glare. I mean, I didn't think that you would you know. And with me already in multiple engagements I just thought that, well, that you wouldn't be interested." Naruto turned his head slightly, trying to hide the small amount of embarrassment he had. "Naruto," Yugao said in a soft voice that caused him to look back at her, "I know it seems strange and fast. Despite knowing each other for a long time, we never even saw each other after you went to the academy, and at that time you were not only young, but I was already in a relationship." She paused there and Naruto saw a twinge of pain. He instinctively pulled her closer, letting her rest her head on his chest. "When I saw you again, I was nearly dead. I tried to get myself killed on a mission, multiple missions." She brought her head back up and looked at him. "You saved me, not just physically but emotionally. I was all but ready to die, and then you came and showed me that I still had reasons to live." She stood up on her tiptoes while simultaneously pulling Naruto's head down, bringing him into another kiss, this one more tender than the other. "I'm not totally sure of my own feelings," she told him after breaking the kiss, "but I want to give us a chance." She paused for a moment before looking down. "If you let me, that is." Naruto looked at Yugao for a while as he tried to sort his mind, a part of him telling him this was some kind of genjutsu while another part was dancing and chibi Narutos were running through his head with flags that said "score" on them. He thought about what this would mean if they did get into a relationship. He would need to talk to Mei, Yugito, Koyuki and Konan about it first. He told himself that he would not get into any relationships without them knowing. Hell, even Konan was known to the others, they just didn't know she was a member of Akatsuki. After a moment's thought, he brought a hand under Yugao's chin and lifted it up, bringing his lips back down on hers. Yugao returned the kiss with fervor. No words were needed to understand what this kiss meant. The rest of their time together that night was spent sparring with something other than swords. That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.